It's time for Twit This Week in Tech. Georgia Dow is here. Harry McCracken is here. Robert Scoble is here. We've got lots to talk about, including the big Microsoft event, what happened with LastPass, that's not so good, and a little bit of a review and some conversation about the new Steve Jobs movie. It's all coming up next on Twit.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for This Week in Tech is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com. This is Twit This Week in Tech, episode 531, recorded Sunday, October 11th, 2015. I hate unicorns. This Week in Tech is brought to you by Citrix GoToMeeting, the powerfully simple way to meet with coworkers and clients from the convenience of your computer, smartphone, or tablet. Share the same screen and see each other face-to-face with HD video conferencing. For a 30-day free trial, visit GoToMeeting.com today. And by Gazelle, the online marketplace for buying and selling used gadgets. Shop from a variety of certified pre-owned electronics or trade one in for cash. Give a new life to a used device. Visit Gazelle.com today. And by Squarespace. Squarespace is the best way to create a beautiful website or online store. Enter the offer code TWIT and you'll get 10% off Squarespace. Build it beautiful. And by Braintree. Looking to set up payments for your business? Braintree gives your app or website a payment solution that accepts just about every payment method with one easy integration. Plus, Braintree will give you the first $50,000 in transactions fee-free. To learn more, visit BraintreePayments.com/twit. It's time for Twit This Week in Tech, the show where we cover the latest tech news with a great panel of very smart people, starting with Robert Scoble, the Scobleizer, joining us from Half Moon Bay. He is, of course, at Rackspace.com and spends more time with startup folks. You got a really good interview with the guy who does that weird new camera. We're going to ask you about that.
Yeah, the Light.co. Yep.
Yeah, everybody's curious about that. It's got a bunch of lenses, simulates a DSLR with a bunch of camera phone lenses, 50 megapixel image. Anyway, we'll talk about that. Also here, Harry McCracken. I still call you the Technologizer from FastCompany.com. Great to see you.
From you, I always enjoy hearing that.
Yeah, you'll always be the Technologizer to me. How romantic is that? And also with us from beautiful Canada, from Montreal, it's Georgia Dow of iMore.com. Great to see you again, Georgia.
Thank you for having me.
And I see your BB-8 has joined you on the set.
Yes, you know, he gets lonely.
Mine's, I forgot to cancel mine. I ordered the Sphero version, right when it came out. I pre-ordered it, and it's coming this week. But I feel like I've played with it enough now that I don't really care if I get one.
You're done.
Yeah, I'm kind of done with it already. Forgot to cancel it. It's not cheap. It's $150.
It's a really expensive toy.
I guess I'll put it in patrol mode and just let it wander the studio.
Yeah, until like someone's pet eats it.
Yeah. So, golly, I don't know where to start. There's stuff that is easy to talk about and easy for everybody to understand. And then there's stuff that is hard to talk about and really hard to understand. And I suppose it's our duty to cover both. I mean, that's what we do here at Twit. But I don't know if I want to start. I'll start with the more accessible one. And then we'll talk about Google's Amped. Because that one's not easy to talk about. What do you got there? What do he's got the camera.
There it is.
It's light. Oh, it's a picture of the camera. You fooled us.
It's a video.
Now, he had a non-working model, right? Or did he have a working model?
He had a working model inside, but they were using it. So the CEO brought one out to show me.
And we can't really judge this yet because the only pictures we've seen are ones on their website.
Yeah, he showed me the full res and they look good, but I need to go and shoot with it against a 5D Mark III and then see if it really stands up to that kind of comparison. I have a feeling that the first one probably won't, but it'll get pretty close enough for most people to say, hey, that's good enough for me. And let's go. Where he was really going with this is the camera industry needs disruption, and the camera industry, most of the camera industry is being done away with by this thing. My an iPhone.
And I have to say,
Android
the new
phone.
iPhone is pretty damn good camera.
It's an amazing camera. The video on it, the Steadicam, the pictures are good enough. And good enough for most people is putting a picture on Instagram, right?
So this camera is from light.co, and if you go to the website, you could see, the video of it. Is the size of a camera phone, but that's not a phone. That's the whole thing.
It's quite a bit bigger than a camera phone.
Is it?
It's thicker than a camera.
Thicker.
Sort of the size of a VHS tape, I'd say, roughly speaking.
All right. And the advantage is I don't have to bring lenses with me, and the camera's lighter than a DSLR, or what?
Right. So it has, I think, 13, and Harry, you might correct me on the number of lenses. I think there's 13 little lenses there and 13 little sensors, some of which are a telephoto sensor, some of which are a wide angle sensor. And then it joins images together programmatically as you shoot them to make these sort of zoomable photographs where you can zoom in and out at will in a way that you just can't on an iPhone, with very high resolution.
Zoom is the big thing missing from camera phones, frankly.
It's almost the only thing missing at this point.
At this point, the quality of the image is good, video is excellent, but you have one focal length.
You can't zoom, and your ability to crop is somewhat limited.
Right.
So this seems less like it's trying to be a step up from a camera phone, and more like it's trying to cram the stuff that people like about SLRs and mirrorless cameras into a smaller package. And it sounds like this first one is sort of, it's like version 1.0, if version 1.0. The idea is over time, they'll be able to cram it into a smaller and smaller package.
There's 16 cameras in it. That's why it's called the L16, but only 10 fire at the same time.
And they're all aimed in different directions and capturing different kinds of stuff.
If you watch Robert's video and you look at how the way that it's got little mirrors and stuff, it's kind of a kludgy, crazy idea. But I'm not sure I agree with you. Certainly the camera industry is stodgy, and companies like Nikon and Canon have really been slow to adopt modern technologies. But it's not like things aren't happening. The Lytro, remember the Foveon processor? Both of these were kind of...
But these aren't coming from Nikon or Canon.
No, and I agree. And I think it's probably the case that Nikon, Canon, and Leica are not going to be the innovators and what we are really seeing is the birth of computational photography.
Yeah, with this thing, what's most interesting is not the hardware. It's all the computer science and the fact they're taking all these images and crunching them together and simulating stuff like optical zoom in a way that nobody else has done before.
Yeah, the images look very nice, but...
And that's how they're getting a decent image quality, right? They're taking low-quality cell phone cameras. The sensors are coming along because of the cell phone the smartphone industry.
Right.
But they're taking 16 of those and joining them together and getting rid of some of the defects that you'll notice on a single one of those sensors.
Right. Again, computationally,
It's a pretty crazy industry. I just was in the MIT Media Lab where they have a whole group dealing with computational photography. So I think we're seeing just the start of a new kind of camera. This gives us a little taste of the future. It's funny. I remember I used to work in a camera store back in the mid-'80s.
Oh, I forgot. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was one of the first people to sell an autofocus Minolta Maxim SLR. And I remember the pros would come in and say, "That's a piece of shit. I'm never buying one. I'm never using autofocus.
Oh, yeah.
I can focus faster and everything." I was like, "Oh, dude, this." And it's the same kind of. Yeah, it's very expensive.
$1,699.
Well, $1,299 right now.
Minus the launch month discount, $1,299, and you have to put out $199 to get on the list. Summer of next year. We're way off.
Yeah,
I would.
I would, unless you got a $200 burning a hole in your pocket. Which most of us don't.
But for $12.99, you can get a very nice Sony A7 body with a decent lens and get a great image. Now, admittedly, there may be some secret sauce here. There's some zooming and all of that might make this better. I don't know. Well, I'm sure we'll let Robert buy one next summer.
Well, they're going to give out several to the pros, and we'll see what Karen Hutton or Thomas Hawk says about it after they've had it for a couple of weeks.
Right.
They're really going to be the ones that judge whether this comes up to the standard of an SLR. Otherwise, it's just a comparison to an iPhone, and most people don't really care about their photography that much.
I think that's the truth.
They're taking selfies or a picture of them in front of the, Yosemite or something like that. And an iPhone does, or an Android phone does just fine for that. This is going after the higher end of the market and is really trying to show a new area of photography where it'll eat away at the DSLR market. I don't know yet that it'll really do that at first. But if you see this as the starting point of a new kind of camera in 5 or 10 years, I certainly can see this thing disrupting SLRs and the bigger camera companies in a huge way, because the software is going to get better. The image sensors are going to get better. And you're right. This computational photography is something that will not stop and will keep coming at us.
And who knows where the next big thing is going to come from. So it's worth looking at these, even though it's appropriate to be skeptical and take a wait-and-see attitude. Yeah. Lots of news. Microsoft had an amazing event on Tuesday, shocking us all, at least shocking me, with its very first laptop. We'll talk about LastPass being sold. The new Steve Jobs movie. I just completed an interview we're going to air on the new Screensavers next week with its director, Danny Boyle. But I know you saw it, Harry. We'll talk about, and I saw it, of course. We'll talk about that because it opens October 23rd nationwide. There's a lot to talk about. Georgia Dow is here from imore.com. Harry McCracken from Fast Company, and the Scobleizer, Robert Scoble. We're going to get to the more news in just a moment. But first, a real quick plug for GoToMeeting from Citrix. I love Citrix GoToMeeting, and I know a lot of you do conference calls. Conference calls can be death. Oh, my God, they drone on and on. You're sitting there, and you know that half the people doing the conference call are playing, video games. The other half are doing DraftKings. Nobody's paying any attention at all. That's why you got to use GoToMeeting, because it's much more engaging. You're going to see not only the screen, but you're going to see the people in your meeting. They're sharing their screens with you. They're also sharing their images in HD quality. It feels like you're actually in a meeting, in a room, face-to-face. It's a great way to present to future customers because you can show them the PowerPoint, but you can also see them. They can see you. You get the body language. You get the bonding happens. It's great to keep a team in touch because nowadays teams are everywhere. Again, we deal a lot with third-party companies doing development and stuff for us, and it's so nice to bring them into the same room using GoToMeeting. It works on your iPhone, your Android device, your tablet, your desktop, everywhere you are. You can even present from your iPad, which is kind of super cool. You could be sitting out in the yard, enjoying the sun, having a meeting. GoToMeeting. I want you to try it today free for 30 days. Just visit GoToMeeting.com. Click the Try It Free button. It will literally take you just a minute to get going. That's the other thing that's so great at GoToMeeting. The setup, the installation, it's almost instantaneous. And that's important because you don't want your clients and colleagues jumping through hoops to meet with you. You want to make it easy for them. Set up meetings fast. Try it free for 30 days. GoToMeeting.com. All right, let's talk about the Steve Jobs movie. I don't want to leave, Georgia, I don't want to leave you and Robert out. But Harry and I saw the movie. And the list of things that are completely made up in the movie is actually longer than the movie itself. And yet, and we just talked to Danny Boyle. Both Danny Boyle and the author of the movie, Aaron Sorkin, really asserted that, look, this isn't, we're not photographers, we're painters. I asked Danny Boyle right away, is this a biopic? He said, absolutely not. We're not trying to get the facts of the matter. We're trying to get the spirit of the person. And I don't think you could pick anybody harder to figure out than Steve Jobs. I mean, even people who know him well are divided over, was he a jerk? Was he a saint? Was he a brilliant marketer? What was he?
Which is why some of the people who are characters in the movie liked the movie, and others said, no, this is completely wrong. I mean, it makes complete sense.
The funny thing is, Woz was paid $200,000. He was the only paid consultant, although I know Sorkin talked to a lot of other people about it. And Woz is so misrepresented in the movie.
It's terrible. It's like Mr. One Note in the movie.
He keeps asking, Steve, when are you going to acknowledge the Apple II team?
It's like he's still doing that in 1997 in the movie.
When are you going to acknowledge the Apple II team? Woz himself said, I only did that once. It wasn't to Steve Jobs. I called Scully, the 30-second call, in which I said, the Apple II team's really unhappy. They're all about to leave. You really should, give them a pat on the back. That's it. And yet it seems like that's all Steve Wozniak cared about. By the way, the subtext on that, I don't know if this was intentional, is I'm the Apple II team. When are you going to acknowledge me? And there is a big showdown between Jobs and Wozniak, which might be a little truer to life, in which Wozniak says, you keep calling me Ringo, and you say you're John. You're not John. You didn't write these songs. I wrote these songs. I created this. I am not Ringo. And, of course, Jobs in the movie calls him Rain Man. He's insulting. He's patronizing. He talks down to him, and yet they're obviously old friends. Is that how true to life is that?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that this movie should have been called Aaron Sorkin because he's the defining personality rather than Steve Jobs. And so I think there are like countless instances where if it feels Aaron Sorkin-y, you should not say to yourself that probably happened or that accurately represents the dynamics of two people.
You make an excellent point. I mean, everything Aaron Sorkin does is mostly about Aaron Sorkin, but this more than ever.
And he's upfront about that. Another example is in the movie, John Scully keeps going to these Steve Jobs keynotes many years after they stopped talking to each other. In reality, after Scully had Jobs pushed out in 1985, they never spoke again. In the movie, Scully keeps coming to keynotes, and they keep having these father-son talks.
It's really interesting.
So then that's not only inaccurate, it's more or less the opposite of the truth.
Although the truth in there is that Scully, to this day, regrets being portrayed as the man who fired Steve Jobs, that has been the bane of his existence ever since. And that's really in the movie. I mean, it's just that, so sometimes the movie reflects a real kind of spirit, but doesn't reflect the fact at all. The thing that's most upsetting to me, of course, they focus a lot, as you probably heard, and we're not going to spoil the movie since it's hard to spoil a movie about a real person, but it focuses on his relationship with Lisa, the daughter that he did not for a long time acknowledge. The thing that was hard for me is they never once mention his wife.
Nope.
They never once mention his other children.
They don't mention the fact that Lisa actually lived with him several years before their heartfelt reunion happens in the movie.
I actually spent a long weekend with Steve and Lorene, Reed, their son, who was 2, same age as my daughter, and Lisa in 1994. They were a loving family. Lisa was very much a part of the family. And so while I don't have very much of an intimate connection to Steve Jobs, the Steve Jobs I saw was not very much like Michael Fassbender.
No, not at all. Certainly there are glints of the real Steve Jobs in there. And
it's a caricature.
And the movie makers are not obligated to show the whole guy. I mean, in the movie, the last scene is in 1998, before a lot of Steve Jobs' triumphs came. And they're not obligated to tell the whole story. But if you go in there thinking that anything in there is more likely truth than not, you'll be deceived over and over again.
There is a character's journey that is true, which is from being a very harsh, difficult person to work with to being somewhat softened by his family, in this case just Lisa, but by his family. And he did, in fact, and of course the authors of Becoming Steve Jobs point this out, much mellow. And when he returned to Apple, he was a much better manager, much better person, and much more effective as well.
I think
you see that in the movie. That's the character's journey in the movie.
Part of it is the decision to make it about these 3 keynotes. Yeah. Basically, because they're only...
You never, by the way, see the keynote.
Right.
It's the moments before the keynote.
I mean, it works great in terms of entertainment and cleverness, but basically all the things that ever happened to Steve Jobs have to line up to these 3 moments. So he has to get back together with Lisa during a keynote, even if, in fact, it happened years before.
Right. Now, you were saying, Robert, that you know somebody who worked very closely with Steve.
Yeah, Andy Grignon, who's actually in the second movie, the Man in the Machine movie, briefly. He worked for him for 9 years. And let's back up. Mark Benioff, after the second movie came out, said that
the Kutcher movie was awful.
Well, yeah, and then
it didn't even succeed as a movie. At least this succeeds as a movie. It's actually probably a brilliant movie, maybe Aaron Sorkin's best.
But his point, Benioff's point, was these don't show the magic of Jobs. They don't show why he is Jobs.
Yes.
They show some of his failings, and they do a pretty good job of showing that. But they don't show what made Steve Steve.
There's no heart in this man, especially in the beginning. The beginning is painful. The first scene is very difficult. He's very harsh.
Well,
which he could be.
But it makes you wonder why anybody would continue to work for him. And there obviously was more to it than that, right?
I mean, a movie that just showed them creating the products might have showed more of the reality if they had showed the pain of creating the Macintosh, for instance.
Here's an example that Andy told me, and that I heard from other people too. So Andy went to AT&T to pitch AT&T on visual voicemail, and AT&T basically laughed him out of the room and said, "You're nuts. You have no idea how hard this is. We're not going to be able to do it." So he went back to Steve Jobs, and he called it crying to mommy, and cried to Steve, and Steve took care of the problem. And when I met the CEO of AT&T, I asked him his side of the story, and he said, "Yeah, Steve came over, and I got a 5-year exclusive deal out of Steve for that."
Yeah.
And so we don't see those insights. How was he able to convince people to do something they didn't want to do? And that's the key, because he is an asshole. You talk to anybody who worked in the group, although his image is being cleaned up now by people who used to work for him. He was very harsh to work for, but he got you to do something you didn't think you could do. And when you did that, you created something interesting and new. And I don't know that the movies have really gotten that yet.
So I guess the only reason I bring it up is I know there's a lot of interest in it. We've been watching, like reading the trailers like tea leaves, watching with great interest. This is a really interestingly made movie. It's a very interesting script by Aaron Sorkin. Danny Boyle does a great job directing it. But do not go there thinking you're going to see anything that is really truthful in terms of what happened, or even maybe in terms of how these people actually were.
And Sorkin's earlier movie about Mark Zuckerberg was completely not.
Yeah, although this is, if you thought that was untruthful, this is far worse.
Is it?
I mean, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the Social Network, which I think was also a great film, the big lie in it was that Mark Zuckerberg created Facebook to meet girls, when in fact he was with the woman who he has now married and is having a child with. And he was not single even then, and was not looking to meet girls.
Not particularly ostracized from society.
And, yeah, not, you know, and what you don't get from the Social Network is an insight into who Mark Zuckerberg is. The sad thing is, I think a lot of how we think of Mark Zuckerberg is colored by that movie. And I think that the friends and family of Steve Jobs are very concerned that Steve's legacy will be colored by this movie. And that's something to be concerned.
That is the big problem when you make a movie about someone who's a real person, because already when someone's an icon, we want to either deify or vilify someone that's in that standing. But in the end, when we've seen something, especially when we see something on media that's visual, we believe it to be true. So it's really difficult to change people's opinions once they've seen a film on that. They just believe it, and most of us are rare in that we don't want to spend more effort or time unless we're really a strong fan or opponent to someone. And so you're just going to accept that on face value. And so it does a disservice to all of the family and friends of someone that's that cares about someone that's dealing with, you know, a movie that's coming out saying things that are not true. And I feel the same way about poor Woz, because he's already someone that takes a good deal of slack in the media.
Yeah, I feel bad for Woz, because Woz is a sweetheart.
He's a sweetheart, and he's an extraordinarily important person in the history of technology. And neither of these two movies, either the Kutcher one or the Fassbender one, have come within a country mile of explaining why Woz is such an important person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You almost wonder why Woz doesn't of course, Woz never says anything bad about anybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but he was a consultant in this movie. He can't be really happy about how he was portrayed in this movie. He has said publicly, for instance, and the thing that maybe is the most damaging to both parties is the shouting match that they have before the iMac launch in the auditorium in front of everybody. And Woz says, I wasn't even working at Apple at the time.
That's right. He was long gone.
I wasn't there. This didn't really happen. And yet he's reluctant to say anything bad about the movie. In fact, he says he likes the movie, which I think also is unfortunate because I think I wish the public at large could understand this has nothing to do with reality. Go see this movie because it's a good movie. It's a work of art, but it has nothing to do with the reality. And the thing is, the reality that we've lived through is so amazing and so dramatic and carries so much importance in it that I wish somebody would do this justice. Maybe Leo, you can't.
Leo, the drama of this industry, and it's not just Apple, is it's a nerd playing in a lab.
That's not interesting.
Something.
Yeah.
I've walked through lots of R&D labs and lots of places where they even make movies, right? You go through, Marvel and meet all the cool nerds who are building the movies. They're typing code into a screen.
Yeah, maybe it can't be done, but I think of things like Stephen Levy's Hackers. I think of Pascal Zachary's Showstoppers. I think of Tracy Kidder's The Soul of the New Machine. There have been great books that have actually factually dramatized real-life events.
No, it's true.
And if you haven't read those 3 books, read those 3 books because and so it is possible. Now, whether it's possible to make a movie, I don't know.
Hackers would be a great movie.
I think it would be.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I would trust Hollywood to make it. I think part of what you're seeing is a culture war here. It's for sure true there, and Sorkin does not like technology and geeks. And I think a little bit Hollywood doesn't like. I think they're a little afraid of the power wielded up north in Silicon Valley, and they would very much like to cut these guys down to size. And I think a little bit of that's leaking through as well. Yeah. Anyway, enough
Woz's brilliance is he was the last person to build an entire computer in his head. A personal computer.
It's a great story in the Hollywood Reporter about the making of this movie. Somebody's saying, why haven't they done a movie about Larry Ellison? Turns out Larry Ellison's daughter, I think her name is Megan, I can't remember, is a film producer, and they approached her for money for this movie. She took a look at it and passed, and you have to think that she was under pressure from Lorraine Powell Jobs and others.
Who also called some of the various people
Leonardo
who were
DiCaprio,
supposed to play Steve Jobs.
Christian Bale. Remember, she's the #1 shareholder in Disney. Yep. She wields a lot of power in Hollywood, and she did everything she could, Steve's widow, to kill this film.
She called Sony, which ended up not making it.
Yeah. It's a fascinating story. Read the Hollywood Reporter behind the scenes, and you'll see how much drama went on with this movie. And it also ties into the Sony Pictures hack. Because
that's why we know about the stuff.
We know a lot about this because of the leaked emails. From Rudin, the producer, who ended up putting it in Turnaround, and Universal picked it up. Rudin took it to Universal, and Amy Pascal, who was the president of Sony Pictures Entertainment at the time, says it was one of the biggest mistakes she ever made to let this movie go. So it's just a fascinating story. According to early box office, it's not out nationwide until October 23rd, but it is out in New York and others in places. According to early box office from that small release, it's doing quite well. So there is, and that's why Tim Cook was a little bit nasty about it. I think he feels like the companies like Universal are capitalizing. It was 4 years after the death of Steve this week. They're kind of capitalizing on Steve Jobs without actually doing him any favors. So there's also that to consider. Yeah.
Yep. And Apple doesn't like you living off of their brand.
Yeah.
You know that.
Good point. Yeah.
I mean, the day he died, I was at Apple's headquarters.
Were you?
Doing interviews.
Wow.
And they were watching who was being interviewed because they came up and tapped me on the shoulder and said, you've given enough interviews now.
This is not your time. This is somebody else's.
This is, so they're very protective of the brand and very, and they're good at it, right? How many other companies have a room full of screens?
I wish instead of Steve Jobs, they'd call it Steve Jonas. Then we could all say, what a great movie. Don't know who it's about. But actually, that's how they used to do that, isn't it? The kind of romance à clef where they would pretend that it was The Circle, great Dave Eggers book. It's kind of, sort of, not really about Facebook.
Steve's sister wrote a novel loosely based on his life, a regular guy.
Yeah.
There is enough drama in all of these things to make a really interesting movie.
I think so.
just that AT&T story is one little one. Another one that Andy said he tried to hire somebody out of the cell phone industry, and Steve said, "You're not going to hire anybody who's an expert at this. You're going to hire people who don't know how to build a cell phone." And I'm like, wow, that would be an interesting scene in a movie.
Remember
right?
how William Randolph Hearst hated Citizen Kane, right? But it wasn't about him, was it?
But a lot of the hard work that goes into these products is, working on the Chinese factory line to make sure the finish is right and make sure the product can get built.
That's not that interesting, I guess. But I think you could make that interesting. I really do.
I think it's interesting. Yeah. Now, is it a Hollywood movie kind of interesting?
I think if you really made an effort, and it wouldn't be a movie because that's only 2 hours, you'd have to do one of those HBO miniseries. You'd have to do a real Halt and Catch Fire. And if you really made an effort to make it absolutely accurate and well done, I think it'd be the best thing ever. Don't you? We've watched an amazing era. This is amazing stuff. And it's changing the world. I don't think it's... You know what? That's kind of what Twit is for the last 10 years. A weekly recounting of the drama and pageantry of the tech industry. I love it.
I did love the look and feel of the movie, and maybe one of the single best things about the movie is the first third was shot in 16 millimeter, the middle third in 35 millimeter, and the last third in digital. So it starts out with this total 80s feeling, and it gradually gets up to the present day, and they don't shove that in your face.
Danny Boyle did a great job.
But it really helps. He is such a good visual storyteller.
He really is great. I asked him about the beginning because they have a clip from Arthur C. Clarke talking about the future that's really, I think, a wonderful stage setter. And he said, I can't take credit for that. It wasn't an Aaron's script. It was my editor who he said, I found this piece of video, probably on YouTube, and they put it at the beginning. And actually, it's a really good beginning. All right, enough about Steve Jobs. Actually, one more thing, because Andy Anako on MacBreak Weekly said, as an Apple fan, I would urge people not to see it in the first 2 weeks. He says the only thing that matters to Hollywood is the box office in the first 2 weeks. He said if you want to see it on cable, see it later, see it a month later if you want, but just send a signal to Hollywood. And maybe that's not a bad idea. Just wait a little bit.
I'm not sure. It's funny. My friend really does not like Steve Jobs, and we decided to stay home. So
interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So he is like, one of Steve's strengths was he never looked back either. He would hate this show so far.
Yeah. Well, all right.
Like, let's talk about that new camera, man. That's it. That's actually interesting.
No, and he's right.
Something new.
He's right. He's right. I got to agree with him.
And then he would say,
yeah, and that's crap. You don't know what you're doing. Scandal in, I don't know if this is a tech story, scandal in the world of unregulated world of fantasy sports. FanDuel. Do you have this in Canada? FanDuel and
no. Not only do we not have it, I still don't understand. What is fantasy sports? What's happening? Why are people spending money? How do you make money? I don't understand.
Is this part of the esports revolution as well?
Well, no. I think I can sum this up in a few sentences if for people who want to know. Fantasy sports started with fantasy baseball. There's fantasy football, and I suppose you could do it with any sport. Originally, it was just a fun thing among friends, and you'd play the whole season. At the beginning of the season, you would have a draft, kind of simulating the actual draft in the NFL. You would pick your team, but your team could be composed of any active players in the league. Your friends would pick their team. You had a limited budget. And then each week, as you watched the game, your team would score points. 6 points for a touchdown pass from Tom Brady if he's on your team, that kind of thing. Each week you'd assess, and at the end, somebody would win. It was a fun thing. People are very passionate about it. Yahoo and others quickly got into it as a kind of back end for it, so it would be very easy for you to play fantasy sports because you wouldn't have to do it. Originally, you had to do it all on pencil and paper, but with Yahoo and others, you could do it. They would calculate your results each week and all of that. That's not what these are, though. What these are is something that resets every week. So, and there's real money involved. So you put in real money. It's basically like horse racing, and that's why it's legal as opposed to casino gambling, because they say it's a game of skill. You still pick a team, you put money in, but you're not betting against your buddies. You're betting against everybody else who's put money in. And according to the ads from DraftKings and FanDuel, you can win a lot of money, tens of thousands of dollars. Millions. It's just like horse racing. It's something called pari-mutuel betting, where there is a pool of dollars been put in by all the participants. The company takes its vig, its cut, and then the rest is distributed among players, just like horse racing. And it's technically legal, even though online gambling is illegal in the U.S. You have to go state by state. It's regulated in person. But it's also apparently a little bit corrupt. One of the things, just like horse racing, if you could get the results ahead of time, you could easily win. And apparently employees of the FanDuel and DraftKings have been playing on the competitor's site, winning money because they'd get information before it would go public. And by the way, the other thing that's very important if you've been considering playing this, and I don't know if you have or anybody has, but in anything like this, but especially in this, there are many, many what we call fish, people who are going to lose. And there are a small number of players who are going to win, who know what they're doing. They're actually know how to play this game, and they're going to beat you. And all the advertising, I think, for DraftKings and FanDuel is to get more fish in the game. Because the more fish in pari-mutuel betting, the more people put money in, the bigger the rewards for the people who really know what they're doing. And you're really somewhat at the mercy. So this is a real conflict of interest if they allow their employees to play. Now both sites are, kind of banning their employees from playing fantasy games for money on any site. FanDuel has asked former U.S. Attorney General to perform an audit. And what's really going to, I think, happen is that I think what's going to happen is this is going to be made illegal eventually. New York Attorney General has opened an inquiry into all of these sites. It's gambling. There's no question about it. It's gambling.
So aren't all of the people just going to have their friends or family members bet for them?
Yeah, right. What's to stop them, right?
Right. It's like they're still, if they still really want to, and I did read that most of the people that work for the companies are people that enjoy doing this, so they must enjoy doing it quite a lot, and they're just going to have some pseudonym, and Sally is going to write it for them, and it's going to just continue happening. Because having all that insider knowledge, how are you going to not take a peek and make that? Well,
especially when you could win $2 million, right?
You're living in a day where money is tracked everywhere. I mean, I work for a public company. If I did insider trading or told you something about what's happening in my company, it will get tracked back because you're going to trade hard on that if you believe me, and you're going to get caught, and I'm going to get caught because they're going to come down on you, and you're going to give me up. All right. So
yeah, but if it's your wife or your daughter or your son, it's actually allowed. It's not.
If you win $2 million, that raises all sorts of flags. How are they going to get you the money?
No, but if it's your family, it doesn't matter. You can just keep it. It's joint use.
You don't know how this stuff. The SEC is going to start looking into this stuff, and all money now is tracked.
It's going to be very interesting. I think these companies are acting very quickly because the last thing they want is a congressional investigation and a move to make this stuff illegal.
I mean, you could get away with stuff like this for a while, but the problem is if you start getting away with it, you're not going to just do it once. You're going to do it over and over. You're going to get caught.
What I was saying, though, is that they have to say that friends and family members are not allowed to do it for you. That's not actually against the law. Where it would be if we were running, if friends and family, if I'm running a contest, my friends and family would also not be allowed to participate.
True.
Yeah.
Not really a tech story, but I couldn't resist. All right. It's sort of a tech story. None of this would exist if you couldn't do this online, right? I mean, that's what makes this such a high-stakes game. $14 billion industry in the next few years.
Before the internet, you had like rotisserie baseball, and it was a nice,
remember that?
teeny tiny
rotisserie baseball. That was fun. Jack Dorsey is CEO at Twitter.
Yay, Jack!
Finally.
Really?
Jack is back.
Is he going to save him?
I think he has as good a shot as anybody.
First of all, save him. I mean, I was just in Brazil and I saw a taco truck and it had Twitter and
I know.
Facebook icon
Everywhere.
on the side of it, right?
Yeah.
Everywhere. So Twitter is one of those things that I don't see needs to be saved yet. It's not.
Well, here's why.
In fact, it's not even in the place where Apple was when Steve Jobs came back.
And I agree with you. I mean, I think Twitter is on the face of it a massive success. But here's why it needs to be saved. They're a publicly held company. The stock market expects huge growth, as it does of all tech companies, ridiculous growth. Twitter is not growing very fast. It's at 300 million and almost holding. And in the past, growth has been fueled by kind of bogus things like bots and spammers. So the stock market is already, and soon maybe even more significantly, punishing Twitter. Why does that matter? Because that's the currency in Silicon Valley for employees. So if you have an undervalued or a poor performing stock, it's hard to get good employees. So you can see the death spiral that ensues from not having growth that the stock market expects. It's a shame because I agree with you. Twitter as it stands today should and could continue forever, right? It's a useful thing.
No, that's not true because Facebook is actively coming after it. Executives at Facebook have told me they want to come after Twitter and take away even more of what Twitter is seen as a leader in, which is journalism and real-time news. So the Moments thing that they shipped this week is aimed at stopping the bleeding on news and also getting new users to see that there's some value here. Because this is the real problem with Twitter, right? How do you join Facebook as a new user? It's usually your friends who force you to sign up. Right. Hey, will you sign up for Facebook so we can tag you in this
Everybody
photo?
you know is already there.
Everybody you know, but there are still people who are not on Facebook, and they are still getting dragged into Facebook.
Yeah, but as soon as you get there, it's everybody you know. It's like, I'm here. You know. It's like going to a nice bar where everybody knows your name.
Twitter, on the other hand, the reason you sign up for Twitter is because you hear about it in the media or at a sporting event or something like that. Follow the Kardashians, follow Leo Laporte, follow, CNBC, whatever. And when you get on to, and you just follow that thing, that's all you see on Twitter. And you don't see that there's any other value. And so Twitter is trying to provide other ways to get you from just being a follower of Twit to being a follower of Twitter, bigger Twitter, more Twitter, so that you get more addicted to it and you stick around and you see some value. And then you tell your friends, hey, you get on Twitter. It's cool. There's, news on there. And I don't know that Jack.
So it's onboarding is the problem.
Onboarding is one of the problems.
If you're going to grow.
Yes. Because Twitter has 300 million users around. Maybe.
So we're the wrong people to ask because we already are there and we have already cultivated our Twitters. And
I love it just the way it is, and I hope it doesn't change.
I do too.
But
I don't exactly.
But
if I were, where else could I go? Look, this is my 5 minutes ago. Andy Yanako posts a picture of him meeting the kid from Moonrise Kingdom, Jared Gilman. Right below that, Terry Bradshaw fed up with the NFL's domestic violence program. Right below that, Darwin's 1838 pro and con list for getting married. I mean, it's full of. It's like your mom's attic full of treasures. Or something. Amy Winehouse.
Good metaphor.
Turns out Amy Winehouse was a thumbsucker. Who knew? But if you watch Twitter, you know.
I think Harry and Leo, this is the problem for us. I keep asking my audiences. I've been doing a lot of speaking lately, and I ask who has posted in the past week to my audiences.
Right.
And
nobody.
Invariably, more people. Well, no, that's not true.
Okay.
70% say Twitter. 95% say Facebook on average. 0, by the way, say Google Plus. Google Plus is
it's
really
gone. Even the Google Plus fanatics finally can admit that
stop trying to make it happen. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, and LinkedIn is about 40%, 50%, somewhere in that
LinkedIn is the biggest stalker in the whole world.
Really? You have some strong feelings about this, Georgia.
Nah, I am constantly getting, this person on LinkedIn would like you to follow them. And these are people I don't know.
Yeah.
These are people that are like clients. I don't know why they're like, and I know none of them are actually doing this. I've had someone that passed away posting to
What?
It's just really unpleasant in many levels. I have strong feelings of animosity towards LinkedIn.
Wow.
Stop it.
And that's where I was going. When you actually sit down with these groups of nerds and you ask them what they feel about the systems, they invariably get to what you just said about LinkedIn, which is it's just noisy and not good, and I don't like being there. And Twitter is noisy, is what I keep hearing.
Yeah.
And people say, I like using Facebook more.
Right.
I don't like reading on Twitter. And you unpack on it, and the feeds aren't as good a quality. The noise level is quite high. I can't show you because my camera's broken.
What does Jack do, though, to fix this?
Jack has the authority to tell people this is the direction we're moving in and this is the way it's going to be because he's a founder.
Yeah, give us some background. He was one of the people who started Twitter with Ev Williams.
There are a whole bunch of people who are, and depending on who you pay attention to, different people are the genius who started Twitter.
They all claim they invented it.
But Jack is clearly one of them.
Yeah.
And then he basically got booted out. And then he came back a few years ago as chairman, but not deeply involved. And then more recently he became acting CEO. And now he is going to be CEO, although...
He's the only person who's been fired twice from Twitter.
He is, and he does have two imposing jobs because running Square is not a side gig. But these are both companies that need to figure out their future where it's not obvious where they're going. But he has the authority to make change. I mean, Twitter has changed shockingly little in its history. The fact that we're still arguing over whether 140 characters works moving forward or not is amazing to me. I mean, but and I don't want them to do more than 140 characters, but if anybody was ever going to convince me that it makes sense or could figure out a way to make it make sense, I think it's Dorsey.
So he's done two things immediately, like the day after. He's announced, well, I don't know if he's announced, but there will be layoffs.
Not quite. But,
thousands of people. And as you mentioned, he created this new tab called Moments. And you know, it's interesting.
To be fair, he didn't create it.
No, I'm sorry. I should say this correctly. He finally said, would you please release this? They've been working on it for a while. This is curated news. So none of the things here come from my Twitter feed necessarily. Some editor has decided that this is what's hot on Twitter. It's kind of like the trending list. And it's news focused. So there's today, there's news, there's sports, there's entertainment, and there's fun. There's not tech, interestingly.
No, it's not granular at all. And right now, it's not all that interesting for me, but it is an interesting template for something that's interesting. Because if the day comes when they have hundreds of topics or thousands of topics, like something like Flipboard, this could be a really cool way to explore it. Right now, it is so hard if you're interested in a topic to find it on Twitter, and this is a format that could work for that.
And it's wonderful because it makes the barrier for entry of getting knowledge immediate for Twitter. Instead of having to figure out who do I follow to find the news that I'm interested in, it gives you a nice curated view of news that is interesting to most people that are on Twitter, and then you can choose to follow that news link. Though, interestingly enough, Leo, we always talk about Canadians and what happens. I do not have Moments on my Twitter feed.
You don't have Moments? It's U.S. only?
I don't have it, neither does Renee. I updated specifically for it, and I am sadly dejected.
Well,
again.
I wouldn't be.
Not missing much. But George and Harry, you mentioned Flipboard, and this I think, along with Apple's news, are really making me wonder what the future of Flipboard and maybe Nuzzle and other news systems are. Nuzzle is tied into Twitter, and actually is
Nuzzle does a better job for me than the Twitter Moments.
Right.
Nuzzle's based on your friends on Facebook and Twitter, and it kind of tries to curate the news. This is Jonathan Abrams, the guy who did Friendster, of all things. This is his...
But Harry laid out where Jack could take Moments, and by making it more granular and making it more about who you're following, Moments could grow into a Nuzzle killer and really take away their oxygen. Or just buy Nuzzle and put it into Moments, and make it a page of Moments, right, where you can see your top news from your friends. And for me, it works extraordinarily well because I'm following 40,000 handpicked people on Twitter. But for again for that
40,000 hand-picked people.
Yes.
hand-picked over, I've been on Twitter for a long time, man.
You see, I have 110, and I can't even look at my Twitter feed because it's just a mess. I just scroll to the top each time. I don't actually use Twitter
On my
at all.
screen, it's just scrolling down.
Don't get Robert started, Georgia. He will.
Oh, okay.
He will tell you how to make Facebook be so much better, or Twitter how to be so much better.
Yeah, I've
it's lists, isn't it? Isn't lists the key?
I have lists, but right now it's scrolling down the side of my screen, and it's just fun to watch.
Do you use Tapbot? What do you use?
Just the Twitter app.
Twitter app. Yeah, if you use, I mean, one of the things that'll be interesting, of course, is that Dick Costolo, Jack Dorsey's predecessor, was the guy who killed, basically, who tried to kill third-party apps and focus everything back to the Twitter app and the Twitter website. I don't know how Jack, the early days of Twitter, it was all about third-party developers and third-party apps. I don't know how Jack feels about that now.
It seems really tough. I mean, just realistically, if you're introducing something complicated like Moments, doing it in a way that Tweetbot can grab it seems...
No, I don't see them supporting developers. There's just... But, it's 6 months, 9 months, 2 years from now, who knows?
If they see drop-off from their own users because people like the format of other applications, then I'm sure that they'll make sure that it's open for developers. But if they notice that people are going to Twitter because they would much rather have control of their own ecosphere.
And they need to satisfy their investors. They need to monetize their streams, and that means having control of where the ads are going to go. And that's why they messed with the developers and cut off all the development, because they needed that control to satisfy the stock market. I don't see that changing because they're a public company, and I also. Let's be honest. If you're a smart machine learning engineer, somebody who really understands the future of machine learning, are you at Twitter right now?
That's an interesting question. Where are you? Are you at Facebook?
Uber.
Uber?
Mm-hmm. Uber's a pre-IPO company, and it's growing very quickly, and it's becoming a brand that a lot of people like. I love Uber, right?
Makes me kind of sad that guys, brilliant developers coming out of school, make the calculus, when am I going to make the most money, as opposed to where can I make the biggest difference, whereas
if you want to make a difference, go into an R&D lab. I was just at a park last week, which is where Steve Jobs bought the Macintosh from, stole the Macintosh from, whatever story you want to believe.
According to Aaron Sorkin, he stole it. I just want to make sure that...
Well, according to the park people, they gave him $1 million worth of pre-IPO stock for his visit, which today is more than $1 billion worth of value.
He bought it.
It was sold not at a very high price because the executives at Xerox didn't have any clue what they had.
Yeah. So Uber is the hotness in Silicon Valley. Wow.
Yeah. Or look at all the unicorns, Theranos, any of the pre-IPO companies that have billion-dollar valuations, right? Slack.
I hate freaking unicorns. I wish they'd never been born.
I wish there was no such thing as unicorns.
I think it just, well, of course, we've been saying this for years, that money has ruined Silicon Valley. But of course, we've been saying this.
We've been saying that since 1970.
Since 1970. So,
or some of us have probably been saying it, not me personally.
No, I have. Yeah, no, I have.
I mean, what's really happened is the nerds won.
Yeah, now it's all about...
And then they realized that they were no different than regular people wanting to profit on what they made.
The money came in, and they made a lot of money. I mean, when I grew up, nobody had a personal computer, right? And only the nerds wanted one. The engineer types, the people who are, you would see at a maker fair. They're the ones who wanted a computer.
I'd like to be clear that
everybody has a computer.
I may hate unicorns, but I still love Nyan Cat. So
there we go.
You see, not all bad.
Actually, I think there are a lot of really smart machine learning people who aren't at any company, because a lot of them are still in academia.
University. Yeah,
so,
universities.
Well, there are ones who are chasing after the biggest payday. I don't think that's in any way true of all of them.
Yeah.
And there are...
And let's face it, there's still bright people at Google and Microsoft and Apple.
And Facebook has done a great job of scaling up, even though Facebook is no longer a pre-IPO company.
Right.
and you're not going to go there just.
Here's really where the new
immediate
war
riches.
for talent is, though, Leo and Harry. I just was in Sao Paulo, Brazil, and I toured a company called Nubank, where people are waiting 6 months to get one of their new credit cards. It's a really cool company. It's a Sequoia-backed company, and they're white hot, and they're hiring the top talent. They're trying to convince the machine learning experts, people who really understand how to do all sorts of fun stuff with algorithms. From fraud detection to customer acquisition to showing cool stuff on your expense reports, right? All of that requires a pretty smart programmer to do. And they can't get enough people. And this is a Sequoia-backed company that is the best in Brazil. And that's the worldwide talent hunt right now. So if you're one of those guys or girls, are you at Twitter right now? When you know that there's a new bank out there that is, white hot and that has a huge future in front of it. Or go to Flipkart, the e-commerce system in India. The addressable market that they're attacking is so immense that, there's going to be several billionaires that come out of that company.
By the way, if you're wondering where Dick Costello went, he ended up writing 1 day a week for Silicon Valley on HBO. So now they got Dan Lyons and Dick Costello. Dick was a comedian before he became CEO of Twitter. So
yeah,
I think that's actually a good acquire for Silicon Valley. Let's take a break. We'll come back. We got to talk about Google. Got to talk about Amazon. Got to talk about Microsoft. We haven't even mentioned the new Microsoft stuff. There's lots to say.
HoloLens.
HoloLens. We hardly knew ye. Robert Scoble is here. The Scobleizer from Rackspace.com. Harry, the Technologizer, McCracken from Fast Company. And Georgia.
I used to work at Fast Company. That's a cool place to work.
Really? That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Georgia. Wait a minute. I got to come up with a nickname for Georgia. Georgia will kick your ass, Dow, from imore.com.
I like it.
She's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, a Canadian.
I'm not a black belt.
What color belts do they have?
They go by a different color scheme, but I'm not actually a black belt.
What's the highest belt?
The highest belt would be a black belt with a red stripe, but I'm not. I got my Canadian championship without being a black belt.
Wow. Okay, so she's a Canadian champion. Either way, you don't want to see her in a dark alley.
And now you know why I didn't come into the studio.
Yeah, yeah, you're afraid of Georgia.
I'm still on Skype. I can't jump.
Don't mess with Georgia. She's a dynamite package. Our show today brought to you by Gazelle. I know there's a lot of new stuff coming. Looking forward to the new Nexus phones from Google, the new phones, the 950 and 950 XL from Microsoft. Maybe you're still hankering after an iPhone. Oh, that's so last week. What are you going to do with the old stuff? Well, I'll tell you what. You're going to sell the old stuff at Gazelle to make money so you can buy the new stuff. Gazelle is an online marketplace that for buying and selling used gadgets. You can shop from a variety of certified pre-owned electronics or get cash on the barrelhead for your old device. If you're tossing your old phones and tablets in a drawer to gather dust, it's like throwing away $100 bills. Just go to Gazelle.com, find your device, get an instant quote, guaranteed for 30 days. Shipping is free. Payment is fast. But you've got 30 days to decide. And I really like that because you can, it gives you time, for instance, to buy the new Nexus phone, get it set up, and then say, all right, send me the box. Gazelle will send you the box. You ship it back. Every device worth more than $1. The shipping is free. But it's also a good place to recycle. They will, by the way, even buy broken stuff, broken iPhones and iPads. Gazelle. Now, if you're looking to buy, they sell certified pre-owned devices at great prices. Shop for iPhone 4S through 6 Plus. They've got iPads, Airs, Minis. They even cater to the Android user with a variety of Samsung Galaxy phones. The new iPhone is in store. The new iPad will be soon to follow, but now's the best time. That's the best time to buy a certified pre-owned device because those old devices are getting unloaded right now at Gazelle.com. Every device fully inspected, backed with a 30-day return policy, sold without contract. You're going to find great prices for a replacement phone. The kids break their phone, get them a nice replacement on Gazelle. Devices are available in good and excellent condition. Good means, of course, some gentle signs of wear and tear. But in every case, that 30-point inspection process ensures that they're fully functioning. There are no scratches on the glass, things like that. All the devices. And you have 30 days to return it. I want you to go to Gazelle. Gazelle.com. To buy, to sell. Gazelle. Gazelle. And we thank them so much for their support of This Week in Tech. I actually bought a Surface Book, like sight unseen.
Already.
I'm excited by it.
It was really exciting. I loved the one more thing moment.
Yeah, because as is often the case with everybody now, even Apple, the rumor mill pretty much nailed everything. In fact, Panos Panay, who was part of the presentation on Tuesday, even chided the press, saying, "Would you guys stop giving out our secrets?" But of course, he did it in a friendly, gentle way. So we knew, and they confirmed there were two new phones: the 5.2-inch Lumia 950, the 5.7-inch 950 XL, both with 20-megapixel PureView cameras, USB-C charging, which is nice, and Microsoft's doing this Continuum device, which allows you to dock your phone, and they demonstrate this and use it as a desktop PC.
That's pretty cool. I met with that team when I was at Microsoft a couple months ago, and they're really doing some cool work.
This kind of is the payoff for one Windows, having the Windows interface look the same on desktop, on tablet, and on phone, having a universal app platform. This is good.
And that's the problem, because this industry is not supporting Windows Phone, and it's not about to start supporting Windows mobile devices. And neither is Microsoft. Every single person I met with up there is holding an iPhone or an Android phone, and they know that they're losing or they've lost. And so when they start really shifting and come out with an Android phone that I can do Continuum on, that's going to be a big day. And I think they're already working.
Do you think they'll do that? You think they'll keep selling phones?
I think they will sell phones, but I don't think that they're going to be so focused on just Microsoft anymore. I think there's a new humility up at Microsoft. There's a new organizational structure, and I saw it across the campus. Satya really is shifting who Microsoft is, how they think about themselves, and where they're going to bring products out to the market. And I think this last week was a good example of this. It felt like an Apple, event, and it was very exciting. They're bringing interesting new products that people care about to the market.
They started with an awesome demo of the HoloLens that probably is nothing like reality, but
that's the issue with some of their demos of the HoloLens.
Let's talk about a HoloLens.
So they show this. We've got a rig that will let you see the HoloLens, and they've got a red camera with a lot of gizmos on it, and then some guy comes out and he makes a fist and a gun forwards around. We can show this. The guy, by the way, well chosen, looks exactly like one of us. He's wearing a hoodie.
He looks a little different than me.
Doesn't look like you. Looks like one of us, fat gamers. And immediately through the beautiful wood-paneled Pacific Northwest walls come spiders and robots, and he starts shooting them, and they appear to be actually coming through the wall. And this is what I really like about augmented reality is you actually, the game becomes part of the room you're in, which I think is really cool. But they're showing this thing as if this guy is seeing all around him in the whole room. That's not the HoloLens we've seen.
Not the one I saw a few months ago, although they haven't released it yet, so it's possible that's gotten better since then.
That was the news. It'll be Q1 for the dev kit.
For the $3,000 dev kit.
So you think, Robert, with your inside, because you worked at Microsoft, you know those guys well. And
I know people who working on the HoloLens team, and I know the guy who invented some of the patents that got sold to Microsoft, Ralph Osterhout, who built ODG, this little company, which is right across the street from the ballpark in San Francisco, and he's been building military glasses for a decade. He was one of the key people who built the night vision goggle. The problem, and the press keyed in on it, is the viewing angle on HoloLens. That video makes it seem like the monsters are all the way around you and that you are perceiving them that way.
As they would be in virtual reality.
not true.
Yeah.
There's a screen in front of you, which is like a 55-inch screen a few feet from you. And it has a small viewing area, and the rest of it is blank. And this is the problem that they're going to have to fix. And I don't believe they're going to be able to soon. Now, Osterhout, once he sold those patents to Microsoft, started over, and he's gotten the screen up to about a 75-inch screen. But it still is a screen. It still has edges on the side of it. And he keeps hinting that he has a way to make it a little bit more wraparound.
So is it BS that Microsoft did this demo? And they had no point in the demo did they say, oh, well, by the way, it doesn't look at all like this.
They have a history of kind of doing that, which I think is dangerous for them, because HoloLens is really cool. And if they raise people's expectations even above its actual coolness, people might be disappointed.
You're absolutely right. Microsoft is always giving people this promising things that they can't deliver. And then what happens in people's psychology is that we end up with expectational debt. I would be completely happy with a small screen that I can interact with various things that might be helpful to me if I'm doing anatomy, if I'm looking at the internals of the brain. To be able to interact with that would be phenomenally cool, and I would love it. But people end up expecting something, and the only way that we know if we're actually happy with something or not is what we expected and then what actually delivered. And so unfortunately, what Microsoft often does is they show lots of cool things so that they get great press, but then people that have never actually tried HoloLens, so they don't know that this is completely different than what they get, are exceptionally disappointed with that. Even though it's massively cool and it's a first-gen device, we shouldn't expect that much from it. But Microsoft, unfortunately, doesn't understand the psychology of what they put out there that they can't deliver on will make people actually very angry and very frustrated.
Well, and let's be honest, we're going to start hearing about this company called Magic Leap, which Google has invested $500 million in, and I hear they're about to get another round of funding. Ted Schilwitz, I went down to 20th Century Fox and visited with Ted Schilwitz, who's the futurist there at the movie company. And he said that Magic Leap is Google's first $1 trillion idea. And he says, where HoloLens has a screen in front of you, Magic Leap has no screen. And therefore, if Magic Leap, even though we know that Magic Leap is 3 to 8 years away, if Magic Leap starts showing off demos before Microsoft can really start getting a market going for HoloLens, they're going to just Osborne the whole market, and everybody's going to wait until the Magic Leap comes
You must be wearing something with Magic Leap. How are they going to project those
you have
images?
a screen. You have a screen, but it's projecting into your eye using a very unique optical system. I don't know exactly how it works, but everybody who's seen it, I've talked to 5 people so far who've seen it and spent a lot of time in Fort Lauderdale seeing Magic Leap. They say it's absolutely mind-blowing.
Well, this is why AR is more exciting to me, frankly, than VR, because you're still in your world. It can be a user interface. It's more than just gaming. VR is really about gaming, but or tourism or something. But this could be a new UI. This could be, and I understand why Microsoft would be interested in it for that reason alone.
The problem is, and I just interviewed Jack, who's Jack? The co-founder of Oculus Rift, Jack McCauley. He was the chief engineer at Oculus and now is running a lab at Cal Berkeley to figure out how to tell where your body is in these virtual worlds. So he's building new sensor worlds. He says the software, and he's not the only one, the software for AR is going to be much harder because of this expectation problem. Because if I want to look at my desk and say, put Monopoly game on my desk and have it appear, the software to do that is way harder than to put me in a virtual world and have me play Monopoly in a completely virtual world.
Right.
And so our expectations are going to be much higher with AR, and they're going to be harder to meet technologically. You're going to have faster GPUs, faster systems than we have the capabilities to build right now. This is why Oculus and Valve have to be tethered to a big-ass PC.
Have you played with the new Mattel ViewMaster?
No, but I have.
It's nice to think of
This
it
is what you want. It's so awesome.
Yeah, cardboard is really cool, and cardboard starts at $15.
This is this is a $30 device. It's hard to describe, and like all of these, very hard to demo. But we demoed it earlier. In fact, I think in our promo you'll see it. What happens is you can buy additional software, but when you get the starter pack, this disc, you put this disc on the ground, and it somehow interacts with the viewer. You put your phone, and it's like cardboard. You still have to have a phone, but it works with a lot of phones. I tried it with the Nexus 6. And when you look through the viewer at this disc, you see animals on it and trees, and you pick up the disc, they're floating on it. It is definitely an AR experience. It's very hard to describe. This is a toy for kids that's $30.
Yeah.
There's also the 3D coloring books from Crayola where you can color these specific pages and then you take a look at it through your iPad or your phone, and the creatures that you've colored are actually now in 3D and kind of moving around.
It's kind of like Osmo, isn't it? That's
it's
the
very
one
cool.
yeah. So I think that we're nibbling around the edges of this big experience, this big AR virtual reality experience. Yeah. But cardboard is cheap, and it's here now. And it actually works. I was blown away. I'm looking at this. I'm sure kids would be. And there's animals on this disc, and I can pick it up, and I still see the world around me. It's really kind of a amazing experience. So there.
So there.
We can wait for a while for Magic Leap and Oculus. I think Oculus is a way off, despite their bullish pronouncements.
Well, we're getting Oculus in the first quarter of next year, along with Valve. The question is, when does everybody, all the nerds that I'm talking to, we have $1,500 burning a hole in our pocket. I've been saving for a while. I'm buying the first one. The question is, when is my wife going to want to play it? And when is it going to go mainstream, in other words? And that's 5 years in the future. First of all, you can't get excited by these things unless you try them. How many people can try a 15-minute demo going to Best Buy or something?
Well,
like that?
That's one of the things Oculus is going to apparently do, is put these demo units in stores.
You've got to see it. I think that Microsoft, by charging $3,000 for the dev kit for HoloLens, I kind of assume that's less about their actual costs and more about telling the world this is still a developer thing. Don't get too excited. Just now, this is for those of you who will build these apps rather than for consumers.
Yeah. And I think all of these products at some level are aspirational for the company. It's like, hey, Microsoft has a future. We're going to build this for a long time. It's going to be a 10-year product, and we're going to invest in it, right? And that gets people excited. It gets employees excited, and it gets customers excited. It gets us excited. I'm excited.
Same thing for Facebook. They're not doing Oculus because they want to get into the gaming business. They're doing Oculus because they think it might be how people are social 5 to 10 years from now.
That's the first demo.
Really sad. That's such a really sad thought. But
it is a little scary.
Really true. But there are also, they have to think about a new way of gaming and a new way to interact. So Oculus, there's a really cool game that Oculus came out with called Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, where you're trying to... Isn't that amazing? Yeah. You're all working as a team to defuse. So it makes me feel like I'm on Mission Impossible, and we're all working together to defuse a bomb. And each person has a different set of the rule book in order to help the one person to be able to defuse it. And so you work as a team, which makes perfect sense. And you're not going to go through the same sickness of motion sickness, which is a huge problem for Oculus right now.
What's cool is it's social too, with real people, right? Yeah.
Yes. And you can play that as a family with friends. It's something that you all have a lot of fun to be able to do. And I think that that's going to be one way that Oculus can bring people together.
By the way, this works on Gear VR. So if you have a Samsung phone, you just get the $99 Gear VR headset. You put that on. You're now the diffuser. You see the bomb. They don't see the bomb. They only see the paper manual, and they try to talk you through it, which I think is brilliant. I think this is exactly the kind of game you want.
By the way, Francine Hardaway corrected us. It's the ViewMaster is $107 on Amazon right now.
What? Yeah. No.
Huh.
She said she was going to buy one. She went there and looked at it. So
maybe somebody is scalping them.
Must be. It's $30 at Walmart and Target.
Yeah. All right.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Because it's just a plastic holder. It's like cardboard. Because all of the smarts, and this is why Gear VR is also smart. All of the smarts are contained in your very pricey $1,000 smartphone.
There are some different ones. Merge VR has a foam one. I should have brought it up here, but I don't have one, which is nicer to wear than the cardboard. And Ion VR puts a couple shutters in there and a little bit of compute to try to keep you from getting sick, which is going to be a problem with these things, particularly in the more advanced media. One guy took me down the Grand Canyon on a river raft, and I started feeling nauseous on wearing Samsung's Gear VR.
That's why I like AR, because AR doesn't have that problem, because you're not tricking your inner ear. You're in your environment.
You're seeing the real horizon instead of seeing a virtual one, which causes that real.
Except now you're going to have lag and other issues, because you're going to have that expectation problem where it doesn't stick on the table the way you think your mind thinks it will.
I'll bring in my Gear VR and we will play. That would be a fun show, I guess. Maybe it'd be the most boring thing in the world. We'll play the game maybe next week.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
That would be so much fun.
And you could actually be there.
Exciting.
You don't have to be in the room with me, Georgia, because you could have the manual right there.
I'm all in it. I'm all in it.
And I'm just sitting here. All right, we'll play. Next week.
Awesome.
What is it? Nobody move and never.
Keep talking and nobody move. Keep talking and nobody explodes.
Nobody move. I'm about to explode. That's how I play it. So that Microsoft launched their event with that HoloLens. Very exciting, maybe deceptive, but very exciting. They also showed an Xbox video with games that are not new, but I guess they were trying to juice people up. They showed the new band that comes out October 30th. Actually, that looks pretty good.
It does look really nice. It looks sleek and comfortable to wear, which I liked.
You're a fitness band fan, Georgia.
Yes.
Right now, Apple Watch, is it for you?
Yes, I'm using the Apple Watch, but I have to say that Microsoft's band looked really nice. I think that it was very seamless. Is it anything more than what I already have? No, but I think that the look is, I think that a lot of women and men would feel comfortable wearing it, whereas I think the Apple Watch is a little bit big and cumbersome.
Yeah, it's only $250. I say only, that's expensive, but it's about what the Fitbit Surge costs. It's what these higher end fitness devices. It has GPS in it. It measures air quality, has a bunch of sensors.
But it didn't seem to be waterproof, which seemed like them dropping the ball on an area where a fitness band really could go, and they would put themselves out of the running with the Apple Watch, which is, water resistant yet.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Something they really shouldn't,
Yeah, I would really... It also is great for golf, which I don't play, but it actually they showed in the video, you could see a radar map of the golf course and get measurements, and it would keep track of your swings. That was in conjunction with a third party. I thought that was kind of an interesting product. It's a little expensive, but I think for the high-end fitness market, it's not $250 is still less than an Apple Watch, and might be interesting. I think somebody here, I think Megan is going to get one so we can review it. They announced 2 new Windows phones. We've already agreed. Who cares? They announced this, which is a shame because you know what? The Windows phone is great. It's sad, but it is. It's dead in the water because it doesn't have Google services. There was a rumor I saw that Google they've settled their patent issues with Microsoft, that they might actually start now doing Google services for the Windows phone. That could save it.
That would be a big deal.
It's the showstopper for me. And they announced the Surface Pro 4, which was about what you would expect, kind of a logical successor to the Surface, which has been very successful for them, I think.
And the new one has a way better touchpad. And like the one part of the Surface hardware up until now that was not pretty impressive was it had this teeny tiny touchpad.
And I think I'm not alone when I resist the idea that I have a tablet with a kind of janky cover that is sort of a keyboard, but not really a very good keyboard and not a very good trackpad. Even if they make it better, it's still kind of almost an afterthought. So I want a laptop.
It feels like less of an afterthought with the new one. I haven't seen it in person, but at least the size is good now.
They responded anyway to those issues.
So the look is still kind of cheap looking, which was sad to me. The red or the blue, it's kind of stands out really. It's loud. I don't know.
Well, but here's the good news. No one knew this. This was a rumor out of nowhere. Paul Thurrott said, I had been given this as a tip a day before, and I didn't believe it, so I didn't run with it. Microsoft announced their very first laptop, the Surface Book, with the wackiest hinge you've ever seen. But on the other hand, this looks like a really nice laptop. Priced like a really expensive laptop, but a really nice laptop, which I immediately ordered because, well, that's just who I am. Although if you go to the pre-order, you might realize that it is even more expensive than you think. The starting price, $14.99. What do you get for that? You get an i5, 128 gigs of storage, and 8 gigs of RAM. And you don't get a dedicated GPU. The least you can spend for a dedicated GPU is $18.99. For that, you get an i5, 8 gigs of RAM, and a 256 gigs drive. And it goes up from there. I decided to opt for not the top of the line, which is $2,700.
Wow.
And did anybody last spend that much for a laptop?
That's a lot for a laptop. But for $2,099, you get an i7. You get a dedicated GPU. It's kind of weird. The GPU is in the base because even though this looks like a rock-solid laptop, they're using a interesting latching mechanism that uses a memory wire that when you charge it, the wire shrinks, releases the latches. So it's an electronic key. It's right on the keyboard to eject the screen. You press it. There's a recorded click, apparently, not a real click, and then you can remove the screen. 3,000 by 2,000, 13.5 inches, very high-resolution touch display with 1,024 levels of pressure, 10-point touch.
Only 3 hours of battery life, though, so I'm a little unclear.
Well, on that pad, on that separate thing. When they're together, they claim 12 hours.
Yeah, it's great then, but I'm not clear why you would want to remove it if you only had 3 hours of battery life, except in a pinch, maybe.
Yeah. You can remove it, flip the thing around as a convertible. And I don't like convertibles where the keyboard is now on the table. So this is a better way to do a convertible out of that. You just flip it around and close it on top of it. That's probably how you'd use it if you wanted to use it as a tablet. It comes with the pen. They've heavily magnetized the pen on the new Surface and the new Surface Book.
Finally.
So it goes whack. Paul Thurrott said it almost leaps out of your hand. Whack. Onto the side of the
thing. Like the biggest unsolved problem of anything with a stylus is you never know what to do with the stylus.
Where does it go?
You always lose the stylus. It's somewhere in the couch.
And this
Apple didn't bother to do anything with the iPad Pro.
This crazy clothespin. Is your BB-8 getting
That's
upset?
not me. That's not me. I thought it was you.
Not me. Robert. Oh, he's up to something.
He was ready for me to take the hit for that one too.
He was up for something. He's got something going on. What do you think of this hinge, though? I don't even know why they did this hinge.
I love it. It's so cool. It's like an icicon. The way that it bends in and out. It's called the fulcrum hinge, which is so cool because it's going to stop at whatever point you would like it to. But it really bothers me that it does not close seamlessly.
It looks like a clothespin. Yeah.
And that bothers me.
So the reason that they give for this fulcrum hinge is stability of the laptop. And it is one of the problems on especially thin and light laptops. And now you've got a big battery in the screen and
Certainly
stuff.
an issue with all of the surfaces.
They tip.
Stability is an issue.
You push it and it tips over. So the idea of this fulcrum is actually it changes the center of balance so that it's much more, they say, much more stable. It also, and I think this is probably not an insignificant reason for it, makes it visually distinctive. You know what you're seeing, right? It's also the first laptop ever to have the Windows logo on it, which you may not know if you watch TV because you see laptops on TV all the time with the Windows logo on it. Product placement, but now there finally is a laptop with a Windows logo in the lid.
I'd love to know what Microsoft's goal is exactly, whether they see this as a cash cow or is it aspirational so that Dell and HP
That's what I think.
Rip it off.
They're showing the OEMs, and it was telling that they compare it to Apple.
Yeah.
They compare all this stuff to Apple because they don't care if Apple's mad. They don't want. They can't compare it to Lenovo or Asus or Acer or HP.
Are there Mac fanatics out there who are going to dump their MacBook Air to get this?
Well,
you know what? It's kind of interesting because I really liked it. If I did not have a laptop and I was not already really invested in the Apple ecosphere, I would think about switching because I use a lot of Microsoft products, so there wouldn't be a huge change. I usually type out. I use Excel. I usually use PowerPoint, and though I sometimes use Keynote, and then I use Word. But the fact that I know that all Apple products are going to work, it's going to work really easily. It's not going to break down. If it breaks down, I can bring it to the Apple Store. And the barrier to entry when you're learning something new and I'm not sure about how to navigate on my screen makes the big change of once you're comfortable with working on a certain computer, the odds of changing are really slim. And I think that that is across the board for people, unless you're in technology. And so you have to learn many different, OSs, which is just a difficulty. So that's why they train it with kids in the schools.
Right.
Because they get comfortable, and then once they get comfortable, they're not going to want to learn something new.
I have to say, as a longtime Mac computer user, I am intrigued by this, and I did order it, and I tell you, for one reason, I don't think Apple's ever going to put touch into OS X.
Probably not.
And I think I'm not alone. I mean, you're sitting there with an iPad, Harry, but after you use an iPad for a while, don't you reach out and touch the screen?
You're right.
Yeah.
You're
I am not
absolutely right.
against, I know Apple is religiously against the idea. They think, well, your arm will get tired, or I don't know what.
Yeah.
I really think touch is not a bad thing. I think that screen, it's 3:2, which is interesting, not 16:9. It's an aspect ratio that you see on the iPad and you see on the Chromebook Pixel, but never on a Macintosh. It's got a stylus, and really, now we'll have to see how much latency there is. It's not going to be an iPad Pro, I'm sure. But I feel like this might be a compelling product. And, Georgia, after all, the difference between OS X and Windows is small, frankly. They're all computers. I mean, it's not.
I agree with you. I would love to be able to reach out and touch the screen. I think that it would make it much easier for when I'm interfacing with things. And sometimes I do. If I've been using my iPad for a while, then I'm going to actually reach out. And I'm upset that I can't move something where I exactly want it. I find using a trackpad annoying and tedious to be able to change things, to be able to draw, to be able to use a stylus directly to the screen. It's one less point. It's one less point that I would have to interface through. And so that would be nice for me. And I think that that's a huge bonus on Microsoft's.
My kids don't understand how to use a computer without touch.
Right.
So
it makes sense.
It's interesting that Microsoft is opening a new New York store on
That
Fifth
day.
Avenue, right by Apple, like 2 blocks down from the Apple, the key Apple store, and it looks like it's going to be a showpiece store. And I think that's why they're doing this. They need products in their store that represent their brand to the public, and they don't really care what Dell thinks anymore. I think you guys nailed it. It's copy Apple when you have to, and then innovate when you can. And here's a good example of where some innovation's coming.
The one thing I'll miss is the command line. One of the reasons I use a Mac is because I love having a Unix command line and all the Unix tools available to me from the command line. If I can solve that, and I don't know what it's going to be, if it's Cygwin or
What do you use them
Putty.
for?
I don't know. I mean, actually,
I do that once.
I don't use it all that much.
Once
but when
every
I
other
use
year.
I fire up Emacs. I like to do.
They're good for troubleshooting occasionally.
Yeah, and I just like the command line. I don't know why. I do. I will probably look at PowerShell or Cygwin or something to see if I can get that duplication. But really, most of the time, what you do on a computer these days is you're in the browser, right? And Chrome looks the same on a Windows machine as on a Mac.
And looks the same
on a
Chromebook.
Though,
Yeah.
I mean, a million people in India today are buying a new smartphone, and they don't even know what the hell we're talking about. Because many of their customers don't use laptops or desktop computers. We're a dying breed.
When will Apple invent touch on laptops?
After Microsoft proves there's a market.
Yeah.
The iPad Pro is their answer there, at least for the next few years.
And I'll probably buy that too because I think that's intriguing. I'm not sure who the winner will be. I think this is very intriguing. The difference is Windows has plenty of apps for it.
Yeah,
and because Microsoft bit the bullet and did Windows 8 and really said we're going to go touch, there's a lot of support for touch in the OS and in the apps.
There is. I still get frustrated though with the Surface. As nice as the Surface hardware is, if you use like Photoshop and Corel Painter and 6 or 7 other desktop apps, they all react to touch differently.
Yeah.
And in no case is it ideal.
And the targets are small. Try to close a window with touch.
The reason I'm excited about the iPad Pro is that at least it's a device where every single app is kind of consistent in the UI, and every single app is touch first. It's still not true with Windows.
Right. Well, we'll see, and I'll certainly do a review of it. But I think this was, cool for a number of reasons. For one thing, nobody knew that Microsoft had this up their sleeve. And even people like Paul Thurrott, who heard, didn't believe it. And
Microsoft's actually pretty good. Microsoft is arguably better than Apple these days.
It might be.
At keeping the big secrets really secret, because that was also true with the original Surface. So I went to that event, and they really did show all the stuff that they had managed to keep completely secret.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that because Microsoft is not as secretive in the first place, though, people are not, gunning for the Apple story is a huge story.
It's true.
Whereas Microsoft is like, meh, the Lumina, meh. Like, no one's really eating up those stories. So.
I used to work at Microsoft, and the interest in Microsoft products just is not even close to that of Apple's.
Right.
Microsoft's business model caused the anti-secrecy, right? Because they had OEMs building all of the devices for the new versions of Windows, and there was no way to keep a secret. Now that they're building their own branded stuff, it's a lot easier to keep a secret because you can control the entire line of who's touching that product and keep them quiet. It's a supply chain issue.
Well, George, if you and I are going to switch to Windows, then we probably should watch the new biopic. Not Steve Jobs, but Michael Dell.
Remember, what we do is eliminate the middleman and sell custom-ordered PCs made from stock parts direct to the consumer. That's it. Everyone with me?
Love the hair.
Good.
Hi. Nothing new to report at Dell. Well, we haven't made any new computers yet, so we'll just keep selling the old ones for now. Okay, bye.
This is just an early prototype.
Looks great, thanks.
Don't you want us to turn it on?
Nah, just start shipping.
But we need to make it great.
No, you need to make it cheap.
What is Project MP? A mouse pad?
Free with every shipment.
Who are we as a company? What do we stand for?
Don't think different.
People still use mouse
Think
pads.
sane. And guys, we gotta make these laptops really thick with the fans in the back so they can see them cooling down.
Some men want to change the world.
Let me just... Oh. There we go.
Why would the E be like that?
I don't know. Doesn't matter. Nothing matters.
Others don't really care about that stuff.
Michael Dell, rated PG-13, starts Friday.
Thank you, Conan. We'll come back with lots more. You're watching Twit with Georgia Dow from imore.com, Harry McCracken from Fast Company, and the Scobleizer. Ah! What's your Halloween costume going to be?
I have no idea. I'm probably going to be on a plane somewhere.
Oh, no, come on. Come on. You got to do Halloween.
I don't know.
Do you do Halloween?
Not really. My kids do Halloween.
I realized what I'm going to be. I'm going to be Paul Blart Mall Cop because I got the Segway. I got the cop shirt. All I need to do is grow a mustache. I'm in. I got the
I'm
gun.
Elon Musk.
Be Elon Musk. I did a terrible thing the other day.
What's that?
I put down a deposit on the Tesla X.
Oh.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful car.
I can get out of that if I want to, right? If I change my mind.
No, I think you're stuck now.
I think I have to buy one now. Well, it's a year. It's one of those. I fall for these every time. They go, oh, don't worry. It's going to be a year. You could change your mind.
You're going to give up your
BB-8s,
Audi?
so don't worry.
My Audi's a lease, so it runs out in October. It's about when I'll get this thing. It has doors that go like this.
The doors are super sweet.
Goes like
I don't
this.
know how I'd get out of my garage, though. I might be stuck in the garage.
And I can put my Segway right in it. It's got lots of space.
I love the Tesla, man.
You don't drive a Tesla.
Jealous.
Do you drive a Tesla?
I'm waiting for the $45,000 one.
And you can thank me and those who have gone before because apparently we're buying really expensive Teslas so that he can make in a couple of years the Tesla for the rest of us.
Is that really why you're doing it, Leo?
Yeah.
Is this an altruistic act?
Leo,
we all appreciate it.
Sure.
Is that what you're telling everyone?
Yeah, I'm an altruist.
Don't worry, Lisa. I'm just buying it to help others.
I care about humanity. Can you tell when somebody's lying? You're a psychologist looking at them?
Yes.
It's philanthropic.
Yes, I can. That's my skill.
Yes, I can. Uh-oh, here comes my wife. Ixnay on the eslate. Our show today brought to you by Squarespace. You know, it's so funny because for a long time, I really thought that a part of my job was to have a WordPress site so I could experience what it's like to modify the templates, to update every 48 hours with the new fix to avoid the security flaws. And I finally just threw in the towel the other day. I said, I've been doing Squarespace ads for like 10 years. Maybe I don't need to have my own self-hosted WordPress blog. And it's kind of embarrassing. It's so easy. It was so nice. I've set it up, and I'm just going to flip the switch as soon as I can get my my server ops to tell me how to do that. But gosh, Squarespace is great. If you go to leoville.tv, you can see the beginning. But I started with the cover page, which is what I really like about Squarespace. Is it's really easy to set up a basic beginning cover page. It's kind of your I don't know, your business card on the internet. And if you take away the lower third, Squarespace, you could see at the bottom it's got all of my the links to all my social media, and it's got a link in. It's just a really, you can even put like, this is the front cover. So you click the blog and you go, and I was able to get my entire blog imported from the WordPress blog going back to, I think I started in 2001, 2002. It's really easy to embed content. The tweets, they came in there automatically. The Instagram comes in there automatically. I've even decided to do an events thing. That's one of the things, the templates are so great. They have things for, you know, all kinds. Like I have my photographs. That's the only event, but there'll be more events soon. I can have a little photo blog, and then you can use the portfolio app to show up your portfolio. I'm thinking, you know, Squarespace really is great. It makes it easy to create I've known this, but I knew it academically, you know, and now I've finally done it. It's like, wow. This was easy, this was fun, and this took me an evening of just having fun, frankly. You can create a professional website, a blog, as I've done, or an online store. If you're a band, they have templates for bands, for restaurants. Incredible 24/7 support. I didn't have to call the support at all because it was just like so easy. And you know, if I decide I want to try a different template, you just click the template. Boom, it's done. All of these templates are state-of-the-art. You know, what inspired me was we were talking to Jason Calacanis. He was on the new Screensavers a couple of weeks ago. And somebody asked on the show, how much should it cost to get a new website? Where do I go to get one? And he said, you'd be crazy to design your own website these days, to hire a designer and all that stuff, because companies like Squarespace have done it. They have the best state-of-the-art templates, mobile responsive, all the technology that you'd want. It's crazy to reinvent the wheel. And you get e-commerce, and you get hosting that never goes down, and it's affordable as $8 a month when you sign up for a year. I signed up for a year. I thought, what the heck? That's nothing. And you get $100 in AdWords credit when you sign up for the business or commerce plans. It is just gorgeous. So if you've been waiting, if you've been trying to do it yourself, if you've been waiting, if you're a new business, if you're a restaurant, and you have a site that you're not the happiest with, you know, there are companies that really, frankly, prey on businesses, that prey on brides and stuff. They say, oh, no, we do all the wedding. Don't do that. You can do it. It's better. Squarespace.com. Try it free for 2 weeks. Just click the Get Started button. No credit card needed. All I ask, if you decide to buy, and I forgot to do this. I was so stupid. Use the promo code TWIT and you'll get 10% off.
You didn't use your own promo code? I didn't even use my own
promo code. I'm such an idiot. Squarespace. What a moron. Squarespace.com. You use the promo code. Get you 10% off. Squarespace.
Do it for Leo.
Beautiful. Do it for me. I got to pay for the Tesla. No, I was just blown away. Yeah, there's pictures on here that I've never, I really had fun doing this. And what was amazing is, you know, my real concern was, how do I get 15 years of blog content from my old platform to my new platform? It was really, really easy. It just kind of happened overnight. And it was easy to hook it up to hover.com. I just love this. Yeah, that's our wedding picture. I don't think anybody's ever seen that. Yeah, it was just the three of us. It's kind of
perfect. That's exactly what you want.
Yeah, it was weird.
Less people.
We did, and this is not a fake. This is not photoshopped. This actually happened. I was looking at my phone, and the giraffe looked over my shoulder. This is not fake either. This actually happened. There was a meteor in the sky.
Where did you meet a giraffe?
That was at the San Diego Zoo, the safari. You go out in a tram and you go feed the giraffes, and they're out there, and they just reach their necks over because you've got bamboo shoots or whatever they like. And And I was looking at my phone. I wasn't paying attention. And the giraffe just kind of nuzzled me. And Georgia, it was a great moment. It was like, oh, yeah, I should probably be paying attention to nature.
Right, instead of the phone.
Instead of the phone.
But then again, nature was paying attention to the technology as well. So
yeah, the giraffe was actually very curious. He really was.
Busy tweeting.
He was tweeting. I think I tweeted that picture. I Instagrammed it or something. All right, moving on. I'm so embarrassed that for all these years, I've done Squarespace sites for friends and stuff before, but I just felt like, oh, it's probably true. I really need to understand how hard it is. I have to do it the hard way. And I don't know what I was thinking. It's so much easier. Let's see. We covered the Microsoft stuff, right? Nothing more to say there. We covered the Steve Jobs. Oh, I don't know how to talk about this. Harry, you're sophisticated.
I claim to be.
AMP. Accelerated Mobile Pages. We actually did a very deep dive on This Week in Google on Wednesday. We had Kevin Marks, who's a developer and really worked at Google, understands web standards and all of that. This is their response to Apple's news. Facebook's news initiative, to Medium. Publishers apparently are interested. I don't know why a publisher would want to do AMP, but I guess they're interested in making their stuff look better and be more usable. And Jeff Jarvis, who's also on Twig, pointed out that a lot of companies now, like BuzzFeed, they don't care about a homepage. They put their content everywhere. Vice does this as well. The idea is it doesn't matter where you read a Vice article, on Facebook, on Twitter, on Flipboard, as long as you're reading the article. And nobody goes to a homepage anymore. Nobody goes to NewYorkTimes.com to read the paper, right? You're much more likely to deep link into it from some other source. Yep. So AMP is an initiative at making pages load more quickly on mobile and desktop. You can actually try it for yourself if you go to google.co/ I think it's amped. And then you'll get a Google search page, but the pages you find will be amped up pages. And it's g.co/amp. Yeah. And you should probably do this on mobile. But there's all sorts of new things. There's a carousel. Can somebody explain what? I guess I understand why Google's doing this. They're doing it in conjunction with Twitter.
Right.
It's open source. It's all on GitHub. But it's weird. Like you can't use JavaScript. Google has to approve any JavaScript you use. There's no image tag. There's no iframes. There's no embedding. Everything kind of has to go through this Google-approved subset of HTML with the goal to support caching, to support speed. And, WordPress.com has already said, oh, we're going to support it. Pinterest has said we're going to support it. I presume Squarespace, actually, I bet you anything, they're going to support it. So if you're using a publishing platform, you might get the benefit automatically. But why would somebody want to use a limited version of HTML?
Well,
here's why. All right, go ahead, Harry.
First Harry, then Robert.
I mean, it's a reaction to, I think, a couple of things, one of which is that Facebook did something very similar, but within the world of Facebook. Google also wants to speed up your pages, everywhere, but in a more open way.
On the open web.
I think Facebook did it in part because media companies have a pretty shaky history of figuring out how to make their sites good. A lot of media sites are horribly slow and are not usable on mobile devices.
And these new ad networks don't help either.
And the ads are really hurting it because you're bogged down by enormous amounts of JavaScript. They're taking JavaScript out partially because there are so many sites that are unusable because there's all this JavaScript tracking you and bogging down the experience. And Google has always worked under the correct philosophy that when you start to get slow, people just abandon you. So speed is usability. And I think they're trying to lead media sites in the right direction by doing this. And I basically like the idea because media sites clearly do need help on this front. They've done a terrible job. And if the fact it's a little more open makes it appealing.
Robert, why? And why, if I'm the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal, should I consider this? Why, if I'm Leo Laporte, should I consider it?
Because you lose fewer readers when you get faster. And we know this from tracking users. And Facebook tracks everybody. Google tracks everybody. And
but
we
isn't this
talk
going
about
too
this.
far? It's there. There's you can't do half the things that the web's supposed to be able to do.
Here's the deal. You're on a mobile phone, you see a headline, you click on it, and you count. And on the average website, it's usually 5 to 8 seconds. On Facebook's approach, it's instant because it's pre-cached that stuff underneath the web page. Sort of how Flipboard got so fast, right? Why did Flipboard feel so nice and fast? Because they pre-cached everything underneath the web page so that when you click that link, it was already there and it would pop up. And I know I go away from pages that don't pop up, and Facebook knows this, Google knows it.
Well, that's why we use ad blockers.
That's another reason, right? Because you remove a bunch of stuff. I mean, one of the tech blogs is one page is like 30 megabytes now, and if you're reading that on a mobile phone, it takes forever. Right?
Yeah, there's quite a few tech blogs.
Plan too.
There's quite a few tech blogs I can't read on my mobile because there's pop-ups that cover things. I can't close them. It becomes an exercise in frustration. You actually cannot get to the content.
And there you go. Because Facebook is not in the business of frustrating its users, and neither is Google, and neither is Twitter.
Right.
They need to figure out a way so that when you're on a mobile phone, you click a link, it pops up, and it makes you feel good, and you use that 5 seconds to read the damn article. By the way, that 5 seconds could be reading the article a little bit deeper, and you get another ad. It improves your monetization, which is what Jack is being asked to do by his investors. Right? And so...
And didn't Google also say that they're going to rank higher on Google itself?
What scares me.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're trying to force
Google
the people.
using its power in the marketplace to promote a technology that is that's Google's.
Benefits
them. And Facebook is doing the exact same thing. Washington Post, I'm seeing a lot more Washington Post lately because they're using the Facebook technology. And they're going to all their media partners and saying, hey, do you want to let Washington Post take all your users? Because it's the same damn articles you all are writing. Let's be honest. Why don't we just put all the traffic over to Washington Post and keep you from being seen? Because your articles take 8 seconds and piss off our readers.
I feel like, though, that there must be an answer that doesn't involve going this far and doing this in Google's camp,
Well, I would hope that media companies would have the fear of God put into them, and in some cases would improve their own technologies. And I think this stuff will raise the bar for user experience, and it will be harder to get away with crummy sites overloaded with ads and JavaScript that bog you down.
Yeah, and how do we get the industry to start doing this? I don't know. The real problem is a lot of these media companies can't afford to hire a really high-end programmer that knows how to do this stuff right. And even if you can, they're usually focused on making ads work properly because that's where the money is.
Well, they're incented. They're incented to use these ad networks and and then they end up junking up their pages when they get to the bottom of the inventory, and it's belly fat ads and punch the monkey. I just feel like I wish Google wouldn't use its clout in the search to kind of, and by the way, we don't know how much it's going to improve your score, right, Georgia, or do we?
No, we don't. But just by saying that, and when your Google rank is going to change the amount of page views, people are incessantly lazy, and we're not going to be clicking through pages, and we really don't have very much brand loyalty when it comes to news or information. We want to get what is fastest, best. So Google, just by saying that, even if it's only marginally true, is going to kind of push people to try to increase their ad revenue by getting a better Google search rank. So it's going to change it. And is it wrong? Yes. But if you were Google, wouldn't you do the same thing?
It feels like they're reinventing the web, or I feel it's like they want to have
by Facebook.
They want to have Google Web and
Apple.
And the Apple, right?
By the way, Apple what are your thoughts on Apple News? I find this really not usable. Now the links for a while the links weren't working. I don't want Apple to aggregate my news.
I don't like aggregated news in any way, shape, or form. I like to search out for stories that are interesting to me, and so I don't think that I'm the person that's going to really use it. The same thing, though, for Google. I really don't want them to curate news for me. I don't like one large network being,
Right.
you know, in control of what is the information that's going to be given to me, because I think that that's too much control for too many main companies. And, you know, information is power. And so if there's a lot of stories that are anti-Google, they might really push that down on the importance list, and it might rank a little lower. And so they can control, you know, which I understand. I fully understand. If I was Google, I would probably do the same thing. I wouldn't want to have a lot of bad press about a product that people don't like. But I think that that's why, you know, you have to control the amount of powers that large conglomerate companies have.
Now you're European. Now you're talking European.
I'm from a socialist country, so
That explains
isn't
it.
that already where it comes to? Yeah.
Jarvis was so upset about the this European Court of Justice invalidating a safe harbor agreement between the United States and the European Union that would allow U.S. companies to kind of say self-certify compliance with privacy rules in the EU. Now they're saying that there's no safe harbor and that every company who does business in the EU, including Google and Facebook, has to adhere to the privacy regulations of each and every country in the EU, which is very scary because that's a difficult thing to do. On the other hand, I understand, and a lot of privacy advocates applauded this. So I don't know what to say. Feels like it breaks the internet also. Feels like there's a lot of things going on that break the internet. Stop it. Knock it off. Hey, did you miss anything this week? We had some good shows. You know what? I got a little cut down I'd like to show you. Some of the things you missed this week on Twit.
Previously on Twit.
Says, look at a reel. Oh! There's little aminals on my reel. Oh, I wish you could see that.
Windows Weekly.
A showmanship A+. We're talking about the new Surface Book.
When they showed a laptop, I think I would have jumped out of my seat and yelled.
Yeah.
They made a device that was laughable by anybody.
Yeah.
Even legless Joe over here.
Hey, what?
Home Theater Geeks.
This week's guest geek is Ricky Farr. The story of your father and how that got you sort of into the whole music business is quite fascinating.
I'm waiting to order my chili dog, and I suddenly hear this voice behind me go, "Oh, I know who you are. You're the boxer's boy. I'm John Lennon. I'm with the Beatles over at the Indra Club." He says, "Come on over." I'd found my drug of choice, and it was the music.
Security Now.
Why Fatch? It behaves just like a worm. It hardens the security of its host devices. It will retroactively remove any pre-existing malware that it finds. The do-gooder vigilante worm.
It's quite a Robin Hood.
Twit. Making the world safe for technology.
If you missed that interview Scott Wilkinson had with Ricky Farr, he's the guy who produced the Isle of Wight Festival. He does impressions. It's amazing. If you're a fan of Jimi Hendrix and The Who and the Beatles, you've got to watch it. It was an amazing Home Theater Geeks. Twit.tv/HTG. Tomorrow on Triangulation, the founder of F-Secure security guru Mikko Hyppönen will join us. He is an amazing guy. He's been covering this scene for years. For years, I recommended F-Disk going back to the early 90s as the antivirus of choice, and he really will have a lot to say. And if you missed the new screensavers yesterday, we had the creator of Tor on, Paul Syverson, and he's going to come back and do a full triangulation with us. Next week, I already did the interview. Some of you saw it. Danny Boyle, the director of the new Steve Jobs movie, will join us on the new screensaver. So a lot of good stuff coming up. Our show today brought to you by Braintree mobile app developers. I got something for you. If you have to get a payments API into your app or your website and you're racking your brains, look no farther than Braintree, BraintreePayments.com. With a few lines of code, I mean literally 10 lines of code, you will be ready to accept Apple Pay, Android Pay, PayPal, Venmo, credit cards, even Bitcoin. And when new technologies come along, you just go to your control panel and you check the box, and there it is. They do it all for you. It's secure. They have great fraud protection, fast payouts to you, and your customers are going to love it. I mean, you don't have to, go much farther than the references they provide. Braintree payments are used by Uber and Lyft. I mean, that's what makes Uber awesome, is the payment system. Uber and Lyft, competitors, they use it. Both of them. hotels tonight and Airbnb. They use Braintree. GitHub uses Braintree. It's really the best solution. Maybe you've seen the one-touch SDK that gets you. This is what Uber uses. You don't have to even do a checkout. You know what? I did an interview with the general manager for Braintree Mobile. His name is Ankur Arya, and he talked a little bit about the next big thing for online retailers.
Contextual commerce is bringing the buying experience inside of a news feed or a consumer platform and not requiring the consumer to have to click away to a merchant's website to complete a purchase. So it's really taking all of the really good demographic data and allowing consumers to buy where they're comfortable discovering things. So the same way that consumers love to do a one-click buying experience with Uber, Airbnb, they're going to want to do that experience with some of these big consumer platforms that they're highly engaged with.
I think this is technology from Harper Reed's company that Braintree just recently acquired. Anyway, Modest. Was it Modest? I think it was the name of it. No matter what you're selling, Braintree is awesome. Fast payouts, continuous support from your first dollar to your billionth. You'll see fewer abandoned carts and more sales with Braintree's best-in-class mobile checkout experience. Have I convinced you? How about this? Your first $50,000 in transactions, fee-free. Find out more. BraintreePayments.com/twit. Look no farther. You have found true payment nirvana. BraintreePayments.com/twit. I'm just going to read the headline. You guys could comment. BlackBerry CEO wants to sell 5 million phones a year.
Good luck with that.
You know, you can say it all you want. John Chen told The Verge his goal is 5 million smartphones a year, but this is the second part of that sentence, which will be necessary to make the business profitable. If that doesn't happen, Chen hinted BlackBerry may exit the handset business altogether.
It sounds
to be more serious, though. Oh, go ahead, Harry.
It kind of reminded me of Donald Trump talking about why he might get out of the presidential race, because Chen was talking about the scenarios under which BlackBerry would get out, which is the first thing you do before you decide to get out.
Yeah. I mean, he's already thinking about it, right? He's already got a number. Well, that's kind of a giveaway.
They've always insisted that making an Android phone isn't going to be profitable enough to stay in the business, and that's exactly what they're doing.
And now it's their last best hope, right?
Well, they should have done it 2 years ago, you know, when they still had people who were customers and still had a lot of brand value. There are still people I see on planes with BlackBerries.
Oh, sure.
But are they going to be willing to give up their BlackBerry and be the last people on Earth who haven't joined iPhone or Android and jump over to Android? I don't know. You know, that's
they're smart. So this is the new Android phone from BlackBerry. It's called the Priv or the Prive?
Priv.
Okay, but it's the first sellable of private. And it even almost reminds me a little bit of Black Phone or some of these other phones that are kind of aimed at being secure. At least BlackBerry has some history and tradition of that. So they could be credible that they might. And as you say, Robert, there are a lot of business and government people who still believe in BlackBerry. They're currently on a pace to sell about 3 million phones a year. So it's not maybe such a stretch to say 5.
But it's not, I mean, even if they did do well on Android, it's not so clear that being in the Android phone business is a great idea these days either. So
it's a race to the bottom. It's like being in the PC business.
Maybe there's some scenario under which they somehow are able to charge enough that there's an attractive profit in there, but it seems unlikely.
600, I think, is what I heard.
Yeah. It's interesting, Leo, you talked on your commercial about developers, though. We haven't talked about Amazon at all.
What do you want to say about Amazon, big boy?
The hot news was the IoT, Internet of Things API and SDK that they came out with. I
think Amazon doesn't get enough credit for being a disruptive business, do they?
Yeah.
They look like a retailer. They're so not a retailer.
No, you know, when I speak, I talk about Amazon Echo, and it's real interesting that usually it's only about 1% of the audience who has an Echo, but everybody loves it who has it. Do you have one of those yet?
Yeah, I do. We've been around long enough, haven't we, Harry and Robert and Georgia, to know that when everybody is talking about something, there's something going on. You know, it happened with the Palm. It happened with the TiVo. It's not a guarantee to success. It just means that there's something exciting. Do you have an Echo?
I do, and I think Amazon's been pretty clever about how they roll it out. It's the opposite of the Fire Phone, where they held a huge press event and bragged about it. With the Echo, they rolled it out quietly, and I'm still more excited about the potential of Echo than the actual device, but I definitely think there is something there.
What do you use it for, Harry?
I use it for listening to podcasts and music a lot.
So you say, Alexa, listen to
podcasts.
Twitch?
I use it as an alarm clock.
Yeah, it's great for Twit. So you can listen to Twit Live. You say exactly that. I won't say her name, but Echo, listen to Twit Live.
I use it a lot with TuneIn.
On TuneIn.
We can turn on everybody's Echo in the world. Alexa,
stop it. That is one flaw. They need to have more than 2 names for that. I've been begging for this. Same thing with OK, you know who, and hey, you know who. Every one of these phones should allow you to customize this phrase. Motorola is the only company that ever did that. But I should be able to have my own phrases.
Let's go back to the developer story, because that fits in here. They have become the default for innovation on the cloud. And
did they fire the entire Fire team?
Not all of them, but a bunch of them.
What is it, A29 or whatever they were, A9?
A9.
Yeah, but if you visit a startup and you ask them, what have you built on it? Instagram is on top of AWS. Flipboard is on top of AWS. Nubank is on top of AWS, and and that's why we've announced a deal with Amazon as well. So at Rackspace.
Oh, really?
We're now providing support for.
They're a direct competitor, aren't they?
Not anymore. We're best of friends now.
That's why he wants to talk about it now.
Yeah, you're talking about Amazon Web Services, which you're right, everybody runs on. In fact, again, this is an example of how Amazon, in a stealth way, is a disruptor. By making Amazon Web Services, they really made it possible for anybody to create an app startup or a web startup. Because in the past, I remember when Kevin Rose started Dig, he had to buy a colo space, and he had to buy servers, and he had to set up servers. It was a lot of money. And it was complicated. Now you just spin up an Amazon Web Service instance, and you've got a proof of concept to all the way up to a full-scaled service. So revenue's been very good for AWS, by the way.
You're going to see us provide support for AWS, Azure, OpenStack, and our own cloud.
That's a smart way to go, actually, for Rackspace.
Yeah, because let's be honest, we couldn't keep up with the innovation that Amazon was investing in.
Yeah.
They just had way more engineers than we could ever afford.
It's $1 billion business.
Yeah.
On $6 billion in sales. I mean, they really know what they're doing there.
But they're not good at service. I was hanging out with the geek who built Coachella's sensor network and their badge system, and it's all built on AWS. And he was having a lot of trouble getting through to their team.
Wasn't Google Drive down on Friday?
Yes.
Yeah.
Google Docs were. I guess
Google Docs
Google Drive
was down.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing, that when you hear stories like that, it scare people, because if Google can't keep their servers up.
Yeah, we at Fast Company, we do a lot of our keeping track of our stories in a Google spreadsheet, which we briefly could not get to.
That's scary.
Yep.
If Dvorak were here, he'd say, "I told you so, cloud, bad idea."
Well, holding your servers down in your basement's a bad idea too.
They can go down there too. They can go down everywhere, I guess.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the chances that you have a nerd, keeping them up to date and keeping them, watching them, make sure they're not too hot or the hard drives aren't burning out is a whole nother thing.
Amazon for a long time has been talking about making a pay TV service. They're apparently at it again, according to sources with Bloomberg Business Week. They've reached out to CBS and NBC about carrying their channels on an online pay TV service. A cord cutter's dream. Doesn't mean they're going to make those deals, because a lot of people, like a little company called Apple, have been trying to make those deals for a long, long time. And the networks are understandably a little slow to embrace this. Dan Rayburn, we've talked to him on the show before. He does the streaming media blog, said that content owners were approached by the company. I didn't know this. Did you know this, John? Amazon bought Elemental. So the streaming hardware that we use, because Kelly told us to buy it, when you watch our live streams there, it's encoded by something called an Elemental. Didn't know this, but Amazon bought them. Did you know that? Oh, they knew that. Why didn't you tell me? So that's an interesting business for them to get into. And they have AWS for IoT, which is what I know you were talking about, Robert. Tell me what that means. It means
so if you're a company like Union Pacific, you're putting sensors underneath the rails to listen to the trains going overhead. If you're a company like Cantaloupe in San Francisco, you're putting a package inside vending machines that's going to talk to the internet, and you're going to use this new AWS IoT SDK to glue it all together and do new things with all those sensors that are around.
So it's kind of like Amazon Web Services for the web, but only instead for these little devices.
Yeah, so think about
Make it easier to create an IoT device.
Now, Nest is on Google's or on Alphabet, but let's say you're building a new thing to, build a new kind of desk with a sensor, for instance. You're going to use this SDK to hook the sensors in the desk to the cloud, and so you can do stuff on the cloud.
Kind of spit up my coffee a little bit when I read yesterday, or maybe it was on Friday, that LastPass was acquired by LogMeIn. I love LastPass. I know many geeks use it. We use the enterprise version for our business. I use it. It's a password vault.
I use it too.
And TechCrunch said $110 million to Joe Segrist and company. Joe was really pretty much, he created LastPass himself and ran a very reliable and secure service that a lot of geeks trusted. I especially trusted it after Steve Gibson took a look at it, talked with Joe, looked at the source code. Joe was very kind to let him look at the source code and gave it thumbs up. LogMeIn, I'm not so sure I trust them as much as I do LastPass. So I don't know. What do you got?
Keep in mind, LogMeIn is a pretty cool system that you can share your Mac or your PC and get into it from your other devices. So that requires a lot of trust as well.
They're a remote access company. I know a lot of people who have been unhappy with how LogMeIn has run the service. They had a free version, which people recommended for a long time, killed that. They apparently still have a considerable number of bugs that people have been complaining about. But most importantly, the history of LogMeIn and Hamachi is not another acquisition that they basically killed. Worries me a little bit.
Just in general, it is a useful reminder that if you entrust somebody with something as important as keeping your accounts safe, you don't know what's going to happen to them. And better they be acquired than they go away.
Right.
But maybe best of all, they keep on doing what they're doing, especially if you entrusted them because you like the people running it.
Right. Yeah, it's a challenge. And I know, there are other choices. What do you use for a password vault?
I jump around a lot because I like to know what's going on there.
Smart.
I've tried all of them. I've tried Dashlane.
My problem is,
password.
I kind of get invested in one. I've got hundreds of passwords in LastPass. 1Password, Dashlane, RoboForm AI.
The one I usually hear is 1Password.
Yeah.
KeyPass is open source but doesn't have the flexibility. What do you use, Georgia?
I use 1Password or my brain.
Your brain is the thing you should not use.
I really shouldn't use it because I will forget my password to absolutely everything. 1Password is happy and it keeps everything there for me because it's just there's too many passwords to use, or I'll end up using the same password for everything, which is a horrible, horrible idea.
Yep.
I have a basic issue. I do a lot of stuff on mobile devices where it's a lot harder for any of these services to be as good as they can be.
Oh, but LastPass solves that, And now they solve it with a little bit of, and it raises a little bit of an issue because in order for them to solve that, they have to store your passwords. Now you encrypt it with your passphrase, and only you know that. They say they can't decrypt it, and I believe that's true. Steve seems to verify that. But that is certainly a point of failure because if somebody can get, and there was some concern that maybe they did get the password vaults stored on LastPass's servers, they could use brute force to bang at them until they got into them. And, of course, somebody gets your password vault, you're dead in the water. That is the worst possible scenario. Yeah. Now LogMeIn has my password vault. I think for the time being I'll continue to trust them, but it's time to maybe start looking at some alternatives. I'm sure Steve will be doing that on Security Now on Tuesday. don't know what else to say about it, but yeah, these things happen. But it's the same thing with Radio Shack went bankrupt. They sold the Radio Shack customer database. Now, you may have agreed to the privacy statement at RadioShack.com or when you joined the Battery Club, but now somebody else has got it. What's their privacy rule, you know?
Luckily, I no longer have any of the same information I did when I was a big member of the Battery Club. So,
yeah, this is good news. Computer science is now the top major for women at Stanford. Maybe we're going to finally break this glass ceiling.
I hope so.
Yeah, it's awfully lonely here. 214 women are majoring in computer science. That's 30% of the majors in that department. So it's still not a majority. Human biology, which had been most popular for women, slipped to second place with 208. But women are about 30% of the comp sci majors at Stanford.
Better. It's improving, for
Better.
sure. We're still a far ways off, but
Better.
Change is slow. Change is slow, and it used to be a field where women kind of felt excluded. Like, if you don't see other people in the job, you actually don't think that that's something you can do. We're mimics by nature. So by bringing your girls, giving them Bitbox so they can learn how to code, bringing them to work, that type of thing. And in media and on shows, having more women visible in technology will help them know that there's a place there for them as well.
Very nice. We're done. You guys rock. Georgia Dow, what you writing for? What you writing about for imore.com right now?
I haven't written anything in a little while. I'm busy writing. I'm doing a conference for on the 21st and 23rd in Indianapolis.
Really?
And so yes, it's going to be on flow states with applications. It's a developers conference, and tickets are on sale until the 13th. So I'm busy doing that right now and trying to get all of my slides and make sure that everything flows well into itself. And so we're going to deal with the psychology of applications and how to make a better app.
I love that. Flow. Apps should flow. You should be in a flow state.
You should. Those are the best applications.
I love you because you cover both anxiety and flow states. You got both ends of the spectrum.
Yes, I'm also doing a sleep. I did a special series for sleep, which is, I think that really one of the number one issues that I see coming up are people are not sleeping as well as they should. They don't have good sleep hygiene, and we haven't taught people how to sleep better. And so it's a horrible thing. It's one of the issues that I deal with. And so we released a DVD on how to sleep better.
Is that on anxiety-videos.com or is that somewhere else? It is.
Yeah.
That one I'm going to get for sure. I don't have anxiety issues, but I don't sleep well.
It's a really good one, and I use the techniques themselves to help myself through the night, and it works exceptionally well.
That is a great video cover.
You like the picture?
Babies know how to sleep.
Picked that one.
When we're born, we know how to sleep.
We do. We actually mislearn how to sleep by a lot of bad habits from parenting and noise, and just sleep is considered as bad and we're not being productive when we're sleeping. But the biggest issue is that we'll actually become more productive, eat less, feel healthier if we sleep more because our brains are being cleansed of all of the neurotoxins that they build up through the day, all of the refuse. Yeah. So it's also a preventative from dementia.
I wish I could remember to get this. Sandra Reich and Georgia Dow, the Montreal Center for Anxiety and Depression. It's anxiety-videos.com. I'll write it down that way. I won't forget. Thank you, Harry McCracken, the technologizer. You'll find him at fastcompany.com. Always great. Thank you for bringing Marie. Where'd she go?
She's over.
Oh, she's talking to Lisa.
Deep in conversation.
That's trouble. That's trouble brewing.
I've been trying to read her lips, but I can't quite tell.
They're talking about the car.
That's trouble brewing. Actually, we're trying to hire Marie. She's so good at PR. She's one of the best ever.
Oh.
She sure is.
And she's brought us great guests, and we just love her. We love you both.
She's not here to hear you saying all these nice things about her.
Yeah, that's okay. She'll hear about it later.
She'll revisit them.
Thank you, Harry. It's always great to have you.
Great to be here, Leo. Yeah. Thanks so much.
And, of course, the Scobleizer, my old friend, Robert Scoble.
What's up?
I've known you as long as I've known anybody in tech. We started working together in the early 90s.
Yeah, when you were on KGO Radio.
Yep.
It's awesome.
Yep. And you're doing so great, and I'm so proud of you, and I just feel like you are on a roll, and this second half of your century is going to be really good.
Yeah, so far it's going good.
Yeah.
Last week was amazing getting to see that camera and everything else.
Yeah.
Going to
Nice.
park. Tomorrow I'm speaking to a bunch of Swedish entrepreneurs. So
Really?
kick off the week to a good start.
You're going to talk like the Swedish chef and do this and
Yeah. Hopefully see some cool startups.
No, don't insult him. Hey, thank you, everybody. That's my job. I'm glad you were here today. We always have fun. And if you would like to join us each and every week, best time to come by, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 2200 UTC. That's when we do Twit on Sunday afternoon. If you can't watch live, though, on-demand video, always available for all of our shows at twit.tv. Little program note. When I was setting up that Squarespace site, I kind of changed the DNS for leoville.tv, and it turns out somehow that I don't understand, we used to, in the old days, we used leoville.tv/podcasts as the podcast URL. We've long ago abandoned that. The podcast URL is now feeds.twit.tv, but apparently maybe it's not just, maybe it's somehow iTunes has the old feeds in some cases. Maybe not in the U.S., maybe in Mexico, I don't know. But if all of a sudden you see there's no podcast feed anymore, resubscribe and make sure you're resubscribing to feeds.twit.tv, not leoville.tv. And I guess what I'm going to do is I'm going to go change the domain server and fix it and put it back to the way it used to be until we figure out why that happened. That's like from the old days of Twit. That's when the feeds were on my server. I don't know what happened. So don't subscribe to leoville.tv/podcast anymore. Do subscribe so you get every podcast whenever they're available right away. That's the whole point of those feeds. If you'd like to be in studio with us, we'd love to have you. It's a great studio audience today. Thank you all for being here. You just have to email tickets at twit.tv, so we'll put a chair out for you. And I guess that's, is there anything else, Jason Howell, besides thanking you, our fine producer, for the job you do each and every day?
Yay. I will accept that. And I think that was about it. That's all I was waiting for, was that. So. Thank you, Leo.
Jason's really too good to be the producer of the show. He hosts a wonderful show called All About Android. It is a must-watch every Tuesday evening at 5 p.m. But we just love having him around. So the more I can get, the better I am. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We'll see you next time. Another Twit is in the can. Yay. Doing the Twit. I'm going to get that. Doing the Twit.